Chapter 41:19. With this, the only resentment the imperial concubines had towards Tanguo dissipated. Each of them looked at Tanguo with pity. There was nothing Tanguo disliked. Gaining everyone's sympathy was also one of the steps. In her position, it was best not to say any harsh words to blame Hellion Feng. After all, he only had 2 mistakes now. He was not good enough and he had found a woman outside. It was sad to say that in this era, it was not a big deal for a man to have these 2 mistakes. If she showed her disdain at this time, she would be scolded by a group of people. They would definitely scold her for being a woman who could not lack a man and was so anxious to get rid of Hellion Feng to find a new man. Yes, the world was always tolerant of men. When it came to women, they were the ones who were wronged. Some normal choices would still be scolded by them with all kinds of sharp and unpleasant words. Just like in the modern era, many men recalled breaking up with their ex. Many of them would say that they could not give her the life she wanted. This sentence was not a confession for himself, but the underlying meaning was to tell the confidant that he had been abandoned by his vain ex. In fact, if it was a vain woman who only loved money, she would not have taken a fancy to you in the beginning. In this kind of situation, most of them had been together for a few years. Not only did they not see any hope in this man, but he had also changed. One could imagine how harsh the world had been to women since ancient times. Tanguo looked at those imperial physicians who were busy helping Hellion Feng and thought of an even more ridiculous thing. There were 2 very real news. The first news was that a man had an affair and his wife proposed a divorce. The man was unwilling. The man admitted his mistake very seriously and made all kinds of compromises. The wife could not tolerate sand in her eyes and still wanted a divorce. At that time, there were some especially ridiculous comments under the comments. They said that it was inevitable for men to have an affair. This was a mistake that all men in the world would make. He had already admitted his mistake and was so sincere. This woman was too harsh and unreasonable. She was so unreasonable and did not care about his feelings at all. Even if it was for the sake of the child, she should not have divorced so easily. Originally, it was the man who made a mistake. Because the man regretted it, the wife still did not agree and did not choose to forgive him. Should she be attacked by countless people? At that time, those comments had refreshed her worldview. The second piece of news was that a young girl had been stabbed to death on the street. Her life had come to an abrupt end at the age of 20. In the end, the investigation revealed that the murderer was the young girl's boyfriend. What surprised Tanguo even more was the comments below. There were actually many people saying that she must have been cheated on. This young girl looked quite beautiful. Perhaps she was vain and went to find a rich man to cheat on her boyfriend. That was why she couldn't bear it and killed him. She couldn't understand if these people had opened their heaven's eyes to know so clearly. How could the words that came out of his mouth be so foul? With Tanguo's status, she could indeed propose a divorce based on Hellion Feng's current situation. But she didn't want to let Hellion Feng off so easily. This person wanted to kill her, and Su Ruoyu wanted to frame her to make a fool of herself. How could there be such an easy thing? After the imperial physicians finished their diagnosis, they all looked at the emperor with troubled expressions, indicating that there was nothing they could do at the moment. Even if they came up with a solution, they wouldn't be able to solve Hellion Feng's current situation. Vertex. Chapter 41:20. After taking those mixed drugs, the evil fire in his body must be released. However, Hellion Feng couldn't do it. He couldn't even do such a simple thing. For a moment, everyone was silent. The princes were well aware and looked towards the emperor. The emperor knew what they were looking at. They wanted him to call Su Ruoyu in. In this case, their goal was achieved. The emperor was still silent. To be honest, Su Ruoyu was a strange woman. He wanted to interrogate her about her secrets, but he never had the chance. Perhaps this was his chance. Of course, the emperor couldn't say it himself. If he called Su Ruoyu in, wouldn't it seem like he was watching this joke? So, he was still waiting. He wanted to see which of these princes couldn't hold it in. At this moment, someone ran in and whispered in the second prince's ear. Then, the second prince looked at the emperor with a troubled expression. The emperor thought, isn't she here now? He quickly asked, Second prince, what's the matter? Father, Su Ruoyu has been clamoring to see third brother. She said she's worried about third brother's condition. Su Ruoyu was so anxious because she knew Helian Feng was drugged. When Helian Feng was carried away, it was obvious that he was delirious. She didn't want anyone to succeed and let Helian Feng touch another woman under such circumstances. Didn't Tangguo follow him into the palace? As Helian Feng's princess consort, this probably became her duty. Helian Feng didn't like Tangguo at all. She wouldn't give her a chance to touch Helian Feng, so she kept clamoring to see her. She planned to use other means if they didn't let her go, although it would expose more. Go, call her in. The emperor waved his hand and Su Ruoyu was brought in. Su Ruoyu saw Helian Feng's red face and delirious mind. She took pity on him and reached out to take his pulse. She didn't expect Helian Feng to have a reaction as soon as he touched her. He immediately pulled her down. At this moment, the emperor spoke, Imperial physician, quickly check on third brother's condition. Su Ruoyu's eyes widened. She couldn't believe it. This scene was as awkward as it could be. Someone really pulled Su Ruoyu away. The imperial physician went to check on Helian Feng's condition and was shocked, Your Majesty, it's okay. Prince Ding is fine. Send 2 palace maids over. The emperor also glanced at Tangguo. Of course, he couldn't let Tangguo, the princess of Beiwang, do this kind of venting thing. To be honest, Su Ruoyu was overthinking. As for Su Ruoyu, the emperor was sure that her identity was strange. He also wanted to confirm if only Su Ruoyu could make Helian Feng react. If that was the case, it would prove that old third did not lie to him. Everyone left the room, and Su Ruoyu was also pulled out. She watched as the 2 palace maids were sent in. No matter how hard she struggled, there was nothing she could do. Fearing that she would cause trouble, her acupoints were sealed and she could not move. Not long after the palace maids were sent in, they all ran out and knelt in front of the emperor, looking troubled. The emperor understood and asked with a calm face, What happened? This servant greets the emperor. This servant does not have the good fortune to serve Prince Ding. The palace maid did not dare to say that Prince Ding was not good and could only say that she did not have the good fortune. At this moment, everyone heaved a sigh of relief, including the emperor. It turned out that only Su Ruoyu, this woman, could make Prince Ding a real man. Su Ruoyu also heaved a sigh of relief. Her understanding was different from everyone else. Peak. Chapter 41-21. The emperor did not allow her to be together with Helian Feng, so he must have felt that her status was not as good as a palace maid. This made her bear a grudge and feel unhappy. Who was he looking down on? She was happy that the 2 palace maids were chased out. She felt that Helian Feng thought that the 2 palace maids were not hers, so he asked them to scram out. Helian Feng was able to endure for her in this situation. It could be seen that he really cared about her. At this moment, Su Ruoyu's heart was tied to Helian Feng. She felt that this man was hers and no one else could touch him. Tangguo saw the strange excitement on Su Ruoyu's face and had some guesses in her heart. Su Ruoyu would not misunderstand that Helian Feng rejected the two palace maids for her right. This would be fun. A beautiful misunderstanding. Let her in. The Emperor's gaze landed on Su Ruoyu. The guards unsealed Su Ruoyu's acupuncture points and pushed her into the room. Without Su Ruoyu, everyone's gaze gradually landed on Tang Guo and they were filled with sympathy. Princess Ding, this is something that I have no choice. The Emperor gave a symbolic explanation as he gave Beiwang country some face. If it was any other princess, he would not bother to say such words. Tang Guo sneered at this moment. She looked as if she had gone crazy. I was wondering what had made Prince Ding unhappy. So the problem did not lie with me but with him. To think that I had to bear the infamy for so many years. Imperial father, since Prince Ding was ill, why didn't you tell me earlier? You have deceived me so much. It was a pity that the original owner did not know what was going on until she died. She thought that it was her status that made Helian Feng fearful. The Emperor was a little embarrassed. He did not know how to explain this matter. Even if he explained, he would not be able to explain it clearly. Tang Guo was also looking forward to the Emperor's explanation. Anyway, De Qi's imperial family would have a lot of trouble in the future. Tang Guo did not leave the palace. She planned to wait here for a while. It seemed that the others had no intention of leaving. The effects of the medicine added together was incredible. She did not know how long it would last. Tang Guo's prediction was right. There was no movement for the entire night. The Emperor had left long ago. The princes and their concubines were all there, saying that they were worried about Prince Ding. Su Ruoyu's body was not bad but she could not withstand such torment. In the end, she fainted and was carried out by the palace maids. Tang Guo watched as Su Ruoyu was sent out for treatment. She then followed the imperial physician to check on Helian Feng. The evil fire has subsided, but this time, Prince Ding's foundation has been injured. He has to abstain from sexual activity for a month. As such, Tang Guo's staying in the palace for a night was more or less enough. She believed that she would be very satisfied with what the princes and princesses would do next. He would definitely spread the news about this matter and add some extra details so that everyone would know the whole story. Sure enough, after leaving the palace, the system helped Tang Guo to broadcast the discussions of the commoners. They were all saying that Prince Ding was not good and that she, Princess Ding, was pitiful. Red date, get someone to spread the news. Say that Prince Ding is ill but he cheated to marry the princess of Beiwang country. What is the meaning of this? Understood, princess. After returning to the prince's residence, Tang Guo wrote a letter and stuffed it into the puppet pigeon's stomach. After a while, the pigeon flew away and disappeared. Chapter 41-22. She didn't write anything and just asked her mother, the eldest princess, and her uncle to do one thing and spread the rumor that Prince Ding was impotent. Prince Ding was ill and deliberately hid it to marry the princess of Beiwang country. Did this not value the friendship between the two countries and look down on Beiwang country, or was it deliberately slapping Beiwang country's face? She had to let the entire Beiwang country be involved in this. This was not just a princess's matter but the entire Beiwang country's matter. Being slapped in the face by De Qi, even those old men of Beiwang country would not give in and would peel off a layer of skin from Beiwang country. Yes, at this time, those old men would not agree to take her back. She was not in a hurry to go back since she had not slapped Helian Feng's face enough. In the end, those old men would beg her uncle to take her back as a princess for the sake of their backbone. The carrier pigeon's speed was very fast. After all, Brother Qi Shao had specially helped her research, so in a few days, Beiwang country would receive it. No matter how shocking the thing was, she did not dare to take it out to avoid trouble. On the other side, Tanggua had just freshened up and wanted to rest. She did not need to worry about what would happen outside, as there were many people who had bad intentions towards Hellion Fong. But before she could lie down, she was informed that a guest had come. The person who came was the housekeeper of Prince Zhong's residence. The housekeeper had also heard about Prince Ding's matter, and it might be something that Tanggua did. The housekeeper could not help but sympathize with her. The housekeeper of Prince Zhong's residence came this time to give Tanggua a gift to express his gratitude and also a promise from Prince Zhong. I am very grateful to Princess Ding for yesterday's matter. The housekeeper's face was full of respect. Prince asked this old servant to pass a message to Princess Ding. If Princess Ding has any difficulties in the future, you can send someone to Prince Zhong's residence. A prince's promise was obviously very precious. Tanggua did not value it, but it was not a bad thing to have one more friend. She accepted the gift and said that it was a coincidence that she met. The steward wanted to ask if Princess Tanggua knew who drugged her, but Princess Tanggua shook her head. I met Princess Lu Guang by chance. I heard that Princess Lu Guang has a straightforward personality and loves to fight for justice. Could it be that she was an eyesore that caused someone to do such a despicable thing? The steward nodded. The princess's temperament is like this, and she can't change it. I didn't expect it to almost cause a disaster. Since Princess Ding does not know about this matter, then this old servant will leave first. Junju is also very grateful to Ding Wangfei and even said that she wanted to come and play with Ding Wangfei after she recovered, asking Ding Wangfei to forgive her. Tanggua lowered her head, indicating that she did not mind. Speaking of which, Princess Lu Guang did speak up for her, which made Su Ruoyu hate her. She didn't feel like she had lost anything by helping Princess Lu Guang. Who wouldn't like this kind of pure girl who had a straightforward personality and treated people sincerely? She would treat anyone who treated her well. Who wouldn't like her? System, hold on. Host, your idea is very dangerous. The emperor wanted to block the news of Hellion Fong, but then he found that it was too late. The entire capital knew. He was not that angry. Hellion Fang's reputation was a bit worse. To be honest, he would be more at ease. Hellion Fong woke up at night and felt a certain part of his body hurt. Knowing that he must have ordered, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. How is you, Miss Su is in another room. Actually, Su Ruoyu had already woken up. She had secretly drunk spring water, which was why she woke up so quickly. Currently, the emperor had arranged for people to check her body. They felt that she had used some special method, but unfortunately, they did not find anything. Su Ruoyu did not dare to use any methods to do anything to these people, so she could only escape. The current situation was that she did not have the ability to escape. Being stripped naked and checked, she felt insulted. Luckily, Hellion Fong wanted to see her later and she was sent over. Hellion Fong summoned his confidant and found out everything. Of course, this matter was not heard by Su Ruoyu. In Su Ruoyu's heart, she was very touched that Hellion Fong could reject a woman for her when he was feeling unwell. This kind of man, even in the modern era, would not be easy to find. Therefore, when she poured tea for Hellion Fong, she directly changed it to the spring water in her space. After Hellion Fong finished drinking, he felt that something was wrong. It was as if his entire body was warm. He looked at Su Ruoyu with surprise. Su Ruoyu felt a bit of sweetness in her heart and finally could not help but share the secret. Peak. Chapter 41-23. When Su Ruoyu shared her secret with Hellion Fong, the usually shrewd Hellion Fong couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. Although he had doubts about Su Ruoyu's abilities and felt that she had some secrets that outsiders didn't know. He still didn't expect that Su Ruoyu had such a big secret. It was a magical space, and there was even a spiritual spring in the space. The tea he drank just now was made with the spiritual spring. No wonder it could instantly eliminate many of the discomforts in his body. Then he remembered that every time he drank the tea made by Su Ruoyu, he would feel refreshed. It was most likely because there was a small amount of spiritual spring in the tea. Just now, he drank a full cup and instantly understood that the tea was extraordinary. There was also black soil in the space. It was said that the fruits and vegetables grown from it would taste very good and also contain some spiritual energy. Often eating the food grown from the black soil would prolong one's life. In addition to these, there are many martial arts manuals in that house. I learned my martial arts there. Su Ruoyu leaned in Helian Fang's arms and didn't mind sharing her secret at all. However, in the end, she still chose to hide the fact that she was not the original Su Ruoyu. Helian Fang now didn't care whether Su Ruoyu was the real Su Ruoyu or not. His mind was full of how to use these things. The inexhaustible spiritual spring in the space, the black soil that could grow anything, and the survival rate was 100%, as well as countless martial arts manuals. In the past, Helian Fang didn't have any ambition because he couldn't do it. Even if he had supreme power, in the end, everything would succeed and he would only be helping others. That's right. Now that he had Su Ruoyu, not only could he be a real man, but he could also have children. The things in Su Ruoyu's hands were enough for him to subvert many things. If he made good use of it, even his cunning father, the emperor, would have to obediently hand over the throne to him. And his brothers. This time, he would take revenge on them one by one. If it wasn't for you, he would have lost a layer of skin even if he didn't die after being drugged with so many drugs. You can't tell a third person such a secret in the future. Helian Fang caressed her head worriedly. Actually, you shouldn't have told me such a secret. This will bring about a fatal disaster. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life. Because you are the only person in this world that I can trust. I am willing to share this secret with you. Su Ruoyu felt as if she was soaking in a honey pot. Just based on the fact that Helian Fang had never left her and didn't even want his life or other women, she wouldn't regret telling him this secret. Helian Fang's heart was filled with gratitude. The two of them hugged each other and consoled each other, as if their feelings for each other had reached a higher level here. I won't let you down. Sooner or later, I will give you a proper identity. Su Ruoyu quickly said, it's my business that I like you. You don't have to do anything more. The marriage alliance between the two countries can't be broken up just like that. As long as you have me in your heart and can't tolerate anyone else, I don't care about that identity. Helian Fang didn't say anything else, but he was thinking in his heart that he had to get rid of that obstacle in the manor as soon as possible. Only a woman like you, deserved the best. Only you, was worthy of the position of princess consort. What a pair of bitches. You're so lovey-dovey. Tanguo saw the conversation between the two through the system space. Vertex. Chapter 41-24. After listening to their conversation, Tanguo recalled the contents of their conversation. Helian Fang was probably going to use the things in Su Ruoyu's space to cause trouble. It wasn't her style to let Helian Fang be in the limelight and have everything go smoothly. With her current status, it wasn't good for her to do anything directly. In that case, she could only use the paper puppets that Big Brother Qi Xiao had helped her refine. She took out 3 paper puppets and dripped a drop of blood onto each paper puppet. Following her will, the 3 paper puppets instantly transformed into 3 people with different appearances. Greetings, Master. Tanguo nodded. Go to the first prince, second prince, and fourth prince respectively. think of a way to become their trusted aides. In the future, whatever Hellion Fong wants to do, help the princes as much as possible. It's best if they can fight to a draw every time. No one can do anything to the other. Yes, master. Tang Guo still instructed the paper puppet that she had sent out last time to play around in the capital if it had nothing to do. She would inform the other party when she wanted to cause trouble. Why didn't she arrange a paper puppet beside the emperor? That was because she didn't think it was necessary. As long as these princes fought to a draw, no one could do anything to the other. With the help of her paper puppet, it would be enough to give the emperor a headache. The 3 paper puppets flipped out of the window. Their movements were very nimble and they disappeared in the blink of an eye. They weren't something that the martial arts experts of this world could compare to. The paper puppets had 2 drawbacks. One was that they could be destroyed by a powerful opponent. However, this possibility was basically eliminated in this world. The second drawback was that when the time limit was up, they would automatically turn into ordinary paper puppets. Yu Book Vault in this world, Tang Guo estimated that these paper puppets could be used for 3 to 5 years. The main reason was that this world didn't have spirit energy to replenish them, so they couldn't extend their lifespan. Hellion Fong stayed in the palace for another day and left in a hurry early in the morning. Originally, the current situation was very unfavorable for Hellion Fong. However, after learning about Su Ruoyu's secret, Hellion Fong was no longer angry. Now, everyone was talking about him, saying that he was impotent and slandering him. These were no longer important. Moreover, these rumors could lower his imperial father's guard against him. However, he was afraid that his brothers would harm Yu. After all, Yu was the only woman who could make him a man. Since his father didn't mind this, he could guess his father's intention. Wasn't it because he felt that Yu's body was profitable? However, those brothers wouldn't. They would definitely think of all kinds of ways to make things difficult for Yu, or even take her life. Also, because they knew how much their father valued Yu, they didn't dare to go overboard and cause their father's dissatisfaction. Hellion Fong decided to keep a low profile in the future so that his imperial father wouldn't be on guard against him again. In addition, he also planned to not have any children before he succeeded. Since he could only have Yu, it would be normal for him to not be able to have any children due to his physical condition. Once he made his brothers lose their qualifications to be the heir, he, who had dispelled his father's wariness, only needed to make countless achievements to satisfy his father. In the end, when his imperial father regretted that he did not have an heir, he would have a child with Yu, and tell the emperor about this unexpected surprise. Then, he would have a 90% chance of ascending the throne, and he would not have to bear the reputation of forcing the emperor to abdicate. Vertex. Chapter 41-25. On the way back, Hellion Fong was thinking about this and Su Ruoyu was leaning on him as if she had no bones. The current Su Ruoyu was very satisfied. Previously, she was the only one who carried the secret. Now that Hellion Fong was carrying it with her, she felt much more relaxed. However, the two of them didn't know that a piece of news was spreading rapidly in the capital. Prince Ding was impotent and it was said that he was a natural eunuch. Regarding this, there were many people who gave examples of this rumor. They even talked about what happened during the Lantern Festival and everyone believed it. As for how it was solved, it had always been a mystery. This rumor was about this mystery. It was said that Su Ruoyu, who was expelled from the Su family, was the one who could make Prince Ding, a natural eunuch, react. There were rumors from the palace that the emperor had arranged for many palace maids to try but none of them could do it. Only Su Ruoyu could. Even if Su Ruoyu made Hellion Fong react and got other palace maids to try, it wouldn't work. She had to go personally. When the rumor spread, young Master Zhang's story was also dug up. Could it be that Su Ruoyu was possessed by some wild ghost or monster? Otherwise, would it be so strange? Yeah. Speaking of which, are the things that Su Ruoyu did really what an unmarried lady should do? I've long felt that something was wrong, but I never thought about it. Now that I think about young Master Zhang's story, I'm suddenly enlightened. It must be Su Ruoyu, this monster. She must have used some method to bewitch Prince Ding. That's right, that's right. The things that Prince Ding has done recently are indeed shocking. I Beidou bookstore in an instant, all the discussions revolved around Su Ruoyu's real identity. Was she the same as the monster in young Master Zhang's story? That monster was a bad person. The citizens of the capital went from discussions to panic. The Su family also knew about this news. The Su sisters felt that Su Ruoyu was either possessed, or she might really be a monster like the rumors said. Lord Su was silent about this for a long time. Then, he got someone to release the news. The news was that the Su family indeed felt that Su Ruoyu's personality was very strange. She didn't seem like a daughter of the Su family. It was said that the Su family had found the maids who took care of Su Ruoyu back then. These maids came out and said that Su Ruoyu's temperament had changed suddenly one day, and they could not recognize her anymore. Miss Su had been a gentle lady since she was young, unlike Su Ruoyu who was dissolute. Exterminate the demons, exterminate the demons. Get rid of that monster, Su Ruoyu. The capital can't have a monster like Su Ruoyu. Otherwise, she will definitely endanger everyone. Things developed so quickly. At that time, the princes had a tacit understanding that they did it. No matter what, Su Ruoyu was He Fang's treasure. They had to make Su Ruoyu suffer. Even if they could only create some trouble for He Fang, they would be very happy. A woman who could make He Fang a real man was a threat to them. Don't forget, He Fang had military merits. The ministers who were watching from afar in the imperial court couldn't sit still anymore. They all stood out and asked the emperor to deal with this matter. After all, this woman belonged to Prince Ding. Prince Ding wouldn't listen to anything they said. They could only let the emperor, the old man, do it. The emperor was actually very unhappy. Even though Su Ruoyu had some abnormalities, the things she took out were top-notch. Peak. Chapter 41-26. After a few tests, he was sure that although Su Ruoyu was abnormal and had extraordinary abilities, she was not a cultivated monster after all. Otherwise, Su Ruoyu would not have been so embarrassed that day. The nannies in the palace had examined the naked Su Ruoyu for a long time. With such humiliation, if Su Ruoyu was really a monster, she would have eaten people long ago. The emperor thought that Su Ruoyu was not a threat now. He did not know what good thing she could take out, so he did not want to kill her for the time being. But because of the officials and the voices of the people outside, if he did not express his opinion, it would be difficult to explain. Late at night, the emperor summoned He Fang into the palace. He did not plan to kill Su Ruoyu for the time being. She was still useful now. Moreover, he did not want to fall out with his third son. Now he understood He Fang's protection of Su Ruoyu. It would be strange if a man did not protect such a woman. He Fang was also very angry about this matter. After being angry, he calmed down. He was worried that he could not find a reason to change Su Ruoyu's identity. It would be strange if he suddenly made Su Ruoyu disappear. If he could use this matter to let Su Ruoyu fake her death and escape, it would be a perfect thing. He Fang did not hide and told him his plan. Of course, before this, he also showed some pity to let the emperor know that he could not leave Su Ruoyu. If a person's weakness was exposed to the opponent, it would be fatal. But if his weakness was exposed to his father, the other party would think that he had control of his weakness and would not worry about him. Sure enough, the emperor agreed to Helian Fang's plan with a face full of pity. He also showed that he believed Helian Fang that Su Ruoyu met a master. 1234. Just like this, Helian Fang went through the emperor's plan to let Su Ruoyu fake her death and escape. The third son is also pitiful. The emperor shook his head and sighed. No wonder the third son did not hesitate to offer the hemostatic medicine and anti-inflammatory medicine formula. Now I understand that the third son just wants to protect this woman. No matter how good this woman is or how her reputation is, if she can make the third son happy, the third son must be protected. As the emperor's son, Helian Fang actually didn't want his own son to be unable to be a man after being a man for a few times. Wouldn't that be a lifetime of torture? As long as Su Ruoyu didn't do anything to harm Daki or threaten him, he would allow her to exist. Dear host, Su Ruoyu has been arrested. Because all the people in the capital and the Prime Minister have taken the lead, they must get rid of this monster that will bring trouble to Daki. The emperor had no choice but to agree to punish Su Ruoyu under pressure. Tang Guo wasn't surprised by this result. When she heard about the hype outside, especially the story of Child Zhang, she knew that such a day would come. To the ancients, as long as it was a freak that they could not control, it would be classified as a monster. Those who are not of our race must be killed. And then, the emperor has ordered in front of the courtiers that Su Ruoyu will be punished by burning at the stake. It's not surprising. As we all know, the ancient people preferred to use fire to kill demons. It's called ashes to ashes. Dear host, there's more to come. The system said excitedly. Tang Guo was curious. Who is the surprise? Could it be the Prime Minister? However, she felt that something was not right. With the Prime Minister's level of sly old fox, he shouldn't have stepped forward to add more crimes to a woman. The Apex. Chapter 41-27. Even if Su Ruoyu framed his son, he would probably do something in secret. Otherwise, he would have almost forgotten about the spies hidden so deeply in the palace. Especially the group of meat pigeons raised in the Prime Minister's manor. They were so fat that they almost couldn't fly. It's Prince Zhong. The system said, haha, there must be something the host didn't think of, right? Prince Zhong already found out who framed Princess Lu Guang and now hates Su Ruoyu to the point of grinding his teeth. Of course he would think of ways to torture her. Moreover, Prince Zhong also suggested that this monster is full of tricks. Her identity should be checked every time she is paraded through the streets. When the time comes to execute her, it will also be checked. If that's the case, Su Ruoyu will inevitably be thrown eggs when she is paraded through the streets. Although Prince Zhong was so vigilant, Tang Guo didn't think that Su Ruoyu wouldn't be able to escape in the end. But until the very end, Helian Fang wouldn't dare to replace Su Ruoyu. He would most likely think of his own method. It was unavoidable that they would be paraded through the streets. The emperor agreed to Prince Zhong's request because after Prince Zhong's request, the majority of the officials agreed. If he didn't satisfy this small request, who knew what these people would think? At that time, it would arouse suspicion and it would be very difficult for the third son to replace her. Prince Zhong's mood improved, but he wanted to immediately strangle Su Ruoyu to death. If she hadn't met Princess Ding, his daughter would have been ruined. If she had been drugged, his daughter would have married that ignorant and incompetent brat. That brat's identity couldn't be casually killed. Fortunately. On the day of Su Ruoyu's parade, there were already commoners waiting to watch. When the prison carriage holding her passed by, all kinds of eggs and rotten vegetables were thrown at Su Ruoyu. Prince Xiong even specially ordered for the people in the manor to throw eggs at her. After all, the eggs hurt and made her look very miserable. They were all rotten eggs. He had people find these rotten eggs a few days ago. Su Ruoyu was paraded through the streets for 3 days. Every day, she was beaten black and blue. If she didn't drink spiritual spring water every day, she wouldn't have been able to hold on. Helian Feng secretly came to see her every day. His face was full of heartache. He said that he had already arranged for her to change her identity. He also said that he wished he could suffer this pain himself, but for the future, he could only endure it. Su Ruoyu craved power for the first time. When she was smashed by those eggs and rotten leaves, a thought appeared in her heart. She must use all of her abilities to help Helian Feng ascend to the throne. Only by sitting in that high place would no one dare to treat her like this. This was ancient times. She needed power. She craved power. On the day of Su Ruoyu's execution, Helian Feng was already prepared, so it was easy for him to swap her out. The person who was burned to death was a death row inmate he had killed. Su Ruoyu, who had escaped, leaned against the carriage. Her body was still sore. If it wasn't for the spirit spring, she would have died. At this time, the carriage was heading towards the border. The next time she came back, it would be from the border. At that time, she would be the general's adopted daughter. Helian Feng was very secretive, and the princes really didn't notice. At present, those paper dolls had yet to find an opportunity to become the prince's most trusted subordinates. However, in the following period of time, he should be able to. Once Su Ruoyu left, it would be the stage for the princes and Helian Feng to fight. Sure enough, Su Ruoyu had secretly contacted Helian Feng less than 2 days after she left. She even left some of the crops in her space for Helian Feng to try and get people to plant them. A few paper dolls who had already infiltrated the princes reported this matter and said that the crops seemed to be unusual. Since Helian Feng valued them, the princes didn't dare to be careless. They asked the paper dolls to keep an eye on them and think of a way to get some back. The paper dolls really did get some back when no one was paying attention. The princes asked people to plant these crops one after another. Tang Guo recognized this crop. Wasn't it the potato that was essential for transmigrating? After it was planted, it could be harvested in 3 months. More than 2 months had passed. Before Helian Feng had time to rejoice, the princes entered the palace to present the new crops they planted to the emperor. In fact, they couldn't wait and were afraid that Helian Feng would beat them to it, so they brought it forward. Although the fruits were small, they tasted really good. If they waited until the day of the palace banquet, they might not have the upper hand. The emperor was puzzled. Why did his sons plant the same crops and present them on the same day? Before he could feel puzzled, Helian Feng also entered the palace and presented potatoes. Helian Feng's expression was ugly. At this time, he didn't know what to say. It seems like it's a coincidence. The people under us all found the same crops, the second prince said with a fake smile. Helian Feng clenched his fists. Was it possible? Peak. Chapter 41-28. The credit that should have belonged to Helian Feng alone was divided equally among the brothers. The emperor would definitely be curious if one of them took it out and would think that it was an amazing crop. No matter how amazing the crop was, its rarity would be greatly reduced when several people took it out at the same time. When he left the palace, Helian Feng's face was extremely cold. He had offered the potatoes to the emperor in advance and not during the palace banquet because something else was going to happen on that day. When the time came, his credit for presenting the gift would be greatly reduced. By presenting the gift in advance, he would have more weight in the emperor's heart. When the time came, the emperor might even help him a little more when he went out to solve the problem in his residence. The other princes were in a particularly good mood. Compared to Helly and Fong, who left the palace with a dark face, their faces were full of smiles, which made Helly and Fong panic. He didn't know why, but these brothers were very capable. Every time he wanted to do something, they would always give him a heavy blow. Every time, he had planned it perfectly. Could it be that they had joined forces? But the news he had secretly received was that although the friction between these brothers was small, it was impossible for them to join forces for everything. After Helly and Fong went back and arranged for people to investigate, he found that these people all had capable people helping them. No wonder their style of doing things had changed. However, no matter how Helly and Fong investigated, he couldn't find out the details of these people. He only knew that these people were found by his brothers who had a good eye for heroes. Helly and Fong had no choice but to suffer in silence. Fortunately, he had prepared a gift for the palace banquet. He guaranteed that this gift was something that the other brothers couldn't present. Before Su Ruoyu left, she had given him the prescription for this medicine so that he could give it to the emperor when he had the chance. Su Ruoyu did this to help Helly and Fong and to make him the emperor. Secondly, it was for herself, to make herself more important in the emperor's heart. The current Su Ruoyu was already the great general's adopted daughter, Yun Nuo. In order to not be pointed at as Su Ruoyu by outsiders, Su Ruoyu had worked hard these few months to turn herself into a real noble lady. She had learned etiquette, manners, walking, sitting posture, and she had learned them all very seriously. After all, she was going to help Helly and Fong become the emperor. If Helly and Fong had feelings, then she would be the future empress. Naturally, in terms of etiquette, he could not be mocked by others. As for whether Helly and Fong would let her become the empress, she felt that it was impossible. Helly and Fong was so affectionate towards her. Just because of his deep feelings for her, he had to bear a lot of infamy. The people outside all said that Helly and Fong was impotent and even gave her the crime of being a monster. These ancient people were indeed very ignorant. It was clearly Helly and Fong who was unwilling to touch those women. Because he didn't like those women, he didn't want to touch them. Wasn't it normal to have no reaction to someone he didn't like? Su Ruoyu never thought that there was anything wrong with her. She would only react to one person. Helly and Fong was a prince. That time, he must have been schemed against. The rumors outside were probably spread by other princes. The purpose was to drag Helly and Fong, Prince Ding, into the quagmire and put an end to the possibility of him becoming the emperor. They didn't want Helly and Fong to be the emperor, but she insisted on making Helly and Fong the emperor. She had left a large pile of martial arts manuals for Helly and Fong. In just 1 or 2 years, Helly and Fong would be able to nurture many experts, right? Vertex. Chapter 41-29. She also took a lot of the spiritual spring from the space for Helly and Fong when she left. After taking so much, the water level of the spiritual spring had indeed dropped by 1/3, but Su Ruoyu did not feel any heartache. Helly and Fong was infatuated with her, so it was all worth it. As long as Helly and Fong did not let her down, she was willing to share these things with him. At this time, Su Ruoyu had already set off from the border for many days. In fact, she had only stayed for a few days from the capital to the border. She had only met General Yun. When Helly and Fong was planning, General Yun had spread the news that he had adopted a daughter, Yun Nuo, at the border. General Yun had no wife or children, so it was not strange for him to adopt a daughter. In order to not be suspected, he had even found someone to disguise herself as him. She wore a veil and delivered gifts to him twice, so that everyone would understand that he had adopted a daughter. When Su Ruoyu went to the border, she was riding at top speed. When she returned, she was as General Yun's daughter, so she could not be that fast. She staggered back to General Yun's residence in the capital when it was close to the palace banquet. General Yun's residence was sparsely populated, and there were no old or young people. This was also the reason why Hellion Feng had this idea. When Su Ruoyu returned, she became the master of the residence. At this time, Su Ruoyu's behavior revealed the style of a lady from a noble family. Her daily practice in the carriage was not in vain. Although her behavior was very different from before, in order not to arouse suspicion, she had specially tattooed a mole under the corner of her eye. Yes, it was a tattooed mole, not a drawn one. These ancient people probably did not know what a tattoo was, right? Fortunately, she had learned a little before. Tattooing a small mole was not a problem. However, she did not want to be surrounded by people, so she would still wear a veil when she went out. Su Ruoyu's figure now was much thinner than before. Her waist was so slim that it could only be held with one hand. When she walked outside, not many people would think that she was Su Ruoyu. Not only did she learn etiquette, but she also learned the 4 arts. Fortunately, the things in the space helped her a lot. In a short time, she had learned the superficial knowledge of these things. Even the superficial knowledge was enough for her. At least now, when she was invited to attend the Flower Appreciation Festival, she could casually write a few words and draw a few flowers. Although it wasn't particularly top-notch, it could at least attract people's attention and make them understand that she was a true daughter of a noble family. As for the poems, Su Ruoyu did not intend to copy the ones in her memory. It wasn't good to be too stunning. After reaching the pinnacle of prosperity, there was bound to be a decline. It was not a good thing to attract attention. She would just be an ordinary young lady from a wealthy family and silently assist Hellion Feng. It was fine as long as the emperor knew how good she was. If someone dared to provoke her, she would not be polite. After all, she was now General Yun's daughter. Dear host, Su Ruoyu has learned to play the pig to eat the tiger. Ever since Su Ruoyu returned, the system had been monitoring her non-stop. However, Su Ruoyu does look like a different person now. It seems that she really suffered a lot last time. Dear host, Su Ruoyu has given those martial arts manuals to Hellion Feng. In another 2 years, there will be many experts in Hellion Feng's hands. It's fine. After Big Brother Crimson Firmament heard about this, he sent me a lot of papercut puppets. He even upgraded them and extended their usage time to 10 years. The system did not notice this. Vertex. Chapter 4130. Actually, when the host was free, he would go to the group to chat. He was quite busy in this world. He had to monitor the emperor, monitor Hellion Feng, monitor the princes, and Su Ruoyu. Of course, he couldn't relax when it came to the host's cutie. The system couldn't help but look at the papercut in the system space. It was a little dizzy. One of the warehouses was already full. Wasn't he spoiling his sister too much? Brother Ziyun heard that Su Ruoyu's methods were endless. He even made all kinds of antidotes for me. For this reason, he didn't hesitate to ask everyone in the group to help gather herbs from the mortal world. After all, the herbs from the celestial world contained immortal energy. Even if it was diluted 100 times, ordinary people would be in danger of exploding after eating it. Why did Ziyun like to refine herbs from the mortal world? That was the reason. She needed it. The system thought, does the host not know how to make herbs? If not, then transmigrating through so many worlds would have been a waste. Wasn't it because she had a brother at home who spoiled her and made her lazy? System, dear host, did you notice something? What? System, you've fallen. You've become corrupt. Tanghua, I can't let down my brother's good intentions, right? They were kind enough to make these things for me. Am I supposed to stiffly say that I can do it? I don't want you guys. That'll hurt their feelings. System, excuses. Excuses. You've fallen. Tangwa, Tongzi, you've changed too. System, host, don't talk nonsense. My feelings for you will never change. Moreover, I'm a system. It's impossible for me to change. Sob, sob, sob. I'm the host. How can you say that I've changed? I'm so sad. Tangwa, Tongzi, haven't you noticed that you've been speaking in Lotus language recently? Who did you learn that from? I'm guessing it's 111. She thought for a while before she figured it out. When two indecent Tongzi got together, it would be strange if they didn't learn bad things. If 222 wasn't so busy with work, it would probably be led astray by them. System, since when was he speaking in Lotus language? There was no love in this world. The host actually misunderstood him. He didn't want to talk to her for a second. Is there anything new in 111 recently? Is my brother Wild's world over? It has already ended. Now, Brother Wild is in the apocalypse. Oh, are you busy killing zombies? Tangguo felt that he should be killing zombies. No, he might have become a zombie. I didn't kill any zombies. Then what are you doing? Tangguo was curious. Don't tell me you've become a zombie boss. That's not bad, I've been one before. System, that's right. You even built a zombie country, the kind that everyone in the world is envious of. The system continued to deny, no, he didn't turn into a zombie. Then what's wrong? He transmigrated into a cat. According to 111, it seems that the cat's owner was very good to it before the apocalypse. However, after the apocalypse, the cat's owner carried it and ran everywhere. However, because it didn't awaken any abilities, it died in the end. Before he died, he even told it to run away and find a safe place to hide. Later, this cat mutated and even found its original enemy. After killing the enemy, although it didn't have to worry about food and water anymore, it still missed the days of being a poop picker. Its strong desire gave birth to an obsession. That's why Brother Wild received this mission. 111 said that Brother Wild has the mentality of a hunter. It felt that this was a little interesting and wanted to see what it would be like to be a cat. Peek. Chapter 41-31. Tangguo was very curious. How is it now? With Big Brother Wild around, the poop picker doesn't have to die. It can be said that it can do whatever it wants in the apocalypse. Anyone who comes up with ideas is killed by its claws. 111 said that ever since its host turned into a cat, its temper has become much worse. The system laughed. Other than finding food and protecting the poop picker, it's still quite relaxed. Host, your Big Brother Wild hates it when the poop picker touches his head. However, the poop picker likes to touch his head and can't be killed. I'm dying of laughter just listening to it. How pitiful. My brother probably regrets this mission. Isn't that so? The system laughed out loud. It suddenly thought of something and said, oh right, big host. 111 said that after this world mission ends, it will buy me an installation package. What installation package? Little system, can you still hold an installation package? Even if you're a system, it should be a very old version. Is it compatible? Do you have enough storage? Tangguo couldn't be blamed for thinking this way. Many old machines were like this. They couldn't hold the most advanced installation package. For example, the system of flip phones and smartphones. System, big host, don't look down on me. After I get the installation package, I'll install it for you to see. That brat 111 said that although I don't have a serial number, the system is as advanced as the Space Control Department. Also, I can fuse powers to level up. They can only rely on the host to complete missions. Speaking of which, I'm much more advanced than those serial numbers. Okay. You're the most advanced. None of the systems he had met so far could fight. Then what kind of installation package will 111 give you? System 111 didn't say what kind of installation package it was. He only said that this installation package would give me a surprise when the time comes. It shouldn't be something useless. After all, 111 said that he could only upgrade to the level where he could buy this installation package after the current mission is over. Then when you install it, remember to show it to me. Of course. After it's installed, I'll show it to Big Host immediately. Of course, good things should be shared with Big Host first. Sigh, young master, why are you sighing? Are you bored in the residence? Do you want to go to the tea house to listen to stories? Ji Changqiu lazily leaned back in his chair and looked up. Are there any new stories in the tea house recently? That's not the case. Ever since the popularity of young Master Zhang's story died down, there hasn't been a single story that stands out. Although there have been many good stories published in the past few months, and the stories themselves are no less interesting than young Master Zhang's, it's a pity that good stories are hard to come by. Once the popularity has passed, no one likes to listen to them anymore. Ji Changqiu asked, what's Helian Feng up to recently? There hasn't been any movement. Recently, Prince Ding has been very free and often participates in some poetry and flower appreciation tea parties. Ji Changqiu narrowed his eyes. Have you been in contact with Su Ruoyu? Yes, with the old fox prime minister as her father. How could he not know that Su Ruoyu was still alive? There is no direct contact. The two of them seem to be very careful this time. However, I have a feeling that Prince Ding is planning something. Ji Changqiu nodded. Keep an eye on him. Yes. Is there any movement from Princess Ding's side? That's not the case. It could be that the story is no longer fresh. Princess Ding also doesn't go to the tea house anymore. Vertex. Chapter 4132. Ji Changqiu frowned. What should he do now? Couldn't he even meet her? Why hadn't Helian Feng acted yet? Wasn't he waiting for them to fall apart by getting such an identity for Su Ruoyu? Otherwise, his father would have arranged for someone to kill Su Ruoyu. After all, Su Ruoyu had harmed him before. His father wouldn't let it go so easily. In less than 2 days, the servants of the Prime Minister's residence found that their young master had a new hobby. He sat in the study and wrote stories. There were all kinds of strange stories. They didn't know what words to use to describe them. In short, these stories could be described in one word. They were tacky but very attractive. Once they started, they would want to continue reading. Ji Changqiu's followers who helped to organize the stories were very excited every day. The stories written by their young master were more interesting than the stories told by the storytellers in the tea house. After the Prime Minister knew about this, he couldn't help but roll his eyes at Ji Changqiu's study. What a funny brat. But speaking of which, this brat's body seems to be better than a few months ago. Especially the recent diagnosis. The doctor said that if he took good care of himself, he wouldn't have a short life. It seemed that it wasn't difficult for him to live a normal life. Thinking of this, the Prime Minister couldn't help but ask Ji Changqiu about this. He walked into the study and read 2 short stories. They were as melodramatic as they could be, but they made people unable to take their eyes off them. They were indeed very suitable for the kind of stories told by the tea house staff. This brat had put in a lot of effort. He was indeed his son. If he wanted something, he had to work hard and think of a way. Even if he couldn't do it openly, he could at least look at other people. Father. The Prime Minister nodded. How have you been recently? Not bad. The Prime Minister didn't beat around the bush with his son and asked his thoughts. Hearing this, Ji Changqiu smiled faintly. It should be the medicine that Princess Ding gave me. It said that she brought it back from Beiwang country. Although it can't cure my illness, it can reduce the pain by half. When the Prime Minister heard this, he felt that it was right to encourage his son to pursue the person he liked. Such a good girl should be matched with his son. The Prime Minister patted Ji Changqiu's shoulder. Kid, perform well. Let others see that not all of Daki's men are like Hellion Feng. The short story is not bad. When it is sent to the tea house, Father will help you publicize it. In Ding Palace, Father has 2 spies that he does not need. Ji Changqiu, thank you, Father. A few days later, Tang Guo did hear about the new stories in the tea house. Even Red Date would whisper a few words to her. It was said that the new stories were very interesting. The system couldn't help but add, "Host, it's your cutie." In order to attract you, she's been cooped up at home every day to write stories. She even received the Prime Minister's approval. I didn't tell you before, but I felt that I could only give you a surprise when this happened. Red Date, stop talking. Let's go listen to a story. Sure enough, when Tang Guo's carriage arrived at the tea house, Ji Changqiu's carriage also arrived. The two of them nodded at each other and pretended that they weren't familiar with each other. They went to their original small room. Ji Changqiu was a little nervous. He didn't know if the story would catch her eye. The Peak. Chapter 41-33. After listening to the storyteller, Tang Guo left the tea house. When she walked out of the small room, she said to Red Date, "Today's story is quite fresh. Princess, wasn't this servant right? I don't know who wrote this story, but it is truly wonderful. Just now, this servant took the opportunity to ask. It is said that there will be new stories soon. That's good. Come back tomorrow." After the two left, Ji Changqiu came out with his entourage. He naturally heard Tang Guo's words clearly. Young master is still the best. Even Ding Wangfei said the stories written by young master were good. The entourage found a chance to flatter and would not miss it. Ji Changqiu was indeed in a good mood. He leisurely walked out of the tea house and got into the carriage. He said, "When I'm free, I can write some short stories. It's a good way to relieve boredom." The entourage had a bad feeling. As expected, after returning to the Fu, Ji Changqiu went into the study to think about new stories. Now, not only did he have to think about it, he also had his entourage go around the capital to find out what happened in the normal families. He also had people gather information about the princes, officials, and nobles' private matters. Writing 2 stories every day was not a simple matter. He had to know more and combine it with what had actually happened. Then he could make it into a complicated and confusing story. He could even make it into a story with xianxia and ghosts. This way, he could immerse himself in the story and also change the background of the story. There were only a few days until the palace banquet. Su Ruoyu, who had become General Yun's adopted daughter, had become famous in a short period of time. She was not a particularly famous talented girl, but no one would ignore this person. Perhaps because of her identity, Su Ruoyu had made a few good friends. Su Ruoyu always wore a veil when she went out. When people asked, she would say that she had a rash on her face. She was afraid of scaring others, so she wore a veil. Many people were very curious about Su Ruoyu's appearance. There were even people who wanted to see it in advance. Of course, they also wanted Su Ruoyu to make a fool of herself. Read well. Among them were the Su sisters. But this time, when they met Su Ruoyu, not only did they fail, they also made a fool of themselves. Su Ruoyu didn't forget the people from the Su family who had harmed her. If it weren't for the Su sisters, would she have been in such a sorry state? Her inadvertent instigation not only made the Su sisters turn against each other, but also made the people in the circle feel that the Su sisters were indeed not presentable. Due to the appearance of the Su sisters, Su Ruoyu became the subject of discussion again. Su Ruoyu's heart was filled with hatred, but she did not show it on the surface. Instead, she secretly memorized the names of these people. Especially these new friends of hers, they were also criticizing her in front of her. Because of this, she did not intend to deepen her relationship with them. Even though Su Ruoyu had changed a lot and displayed some talents from time to time, Princess Lu Guang still didn't like her very much. Su Ruoyu wasn't sure what had happened to Princess Lu Guang. She only knew that she had drugged Princess Lu Guang and another ugly man. She didn't know if it had succeeded. Now that she saw Princess Lu Guang's glamorous appearance, Su Ruoyu felt bad. She wouldn't directly confront Princess Lu Guang. After all, she was General Yun's adopted daughter. That would be too degrading. But she could secretly sow discord and let the people around her slowly think that Princess Lu Guang was not good. Unexpectedly, Princess Lu Guang did not appear on those occasions later. She came to look for Tang Guo and told Tang Guo about General Yun's adopted daughter returning to the capital recently. Peak. Chapter 41-34. I feel that there's something strange about her. Princess Lu Guang expressed her thoughts. She sat on the stone bench with her hands on her face as she watched Tang Guo practice her swordsmanship. As for what's strange, it's that no matter who provokes her, it doesn't seem to end well. I don't really like her, but I can't find anything wrong with her. It's as if everything is just a coincidence. Some things seem to develop and those people only have themselves to blame. But I still feel that there's something wrong. After Tang Guo finished practicing her swordsmanship, she returned to the side and drank a cup of water. Since Princess Lu Guang feels that she's strange, then don't join in the fun in front of her in the future. I was a little curious at first. Since Sister Guo said that you're not going, then I won't go. Father said that I have to listen to Sister Guo. Princess Lu Guang smiled. She had made so many good friends, but this was the first time her father was satisfied with her playing with Sister Guo. This was something that had never happened before. However, she really liked playing with Sister Guo. In front of Sister Guo, she could say whatever she wanted. She didn't need to care too much. But her father also warned her not to get too close to her cousin. It was really strange. The palace banquet is in 3 days. Sister Guo, let's go to the palace together. Princess Lu Guang came today for this matter. Tang Guo agreed. The palace banquet was finally coming. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. The envoy from Beiwang country had already arrived. They used the excuse that the eldest princess and the emperor missed Princess Yuan. But the real reason was to help Tang Guo. Helian Feng had already prepared everything that he wanted to do to her. And the other person who was being schemed against was actually Ji Changqiu. When she heard this news, Tang Guo was stunned. This Helian Feng really had a soft spot for scheming against Ji Changqiu. He wouldn't give up until he killed him. In the original plot, the original owner was schemed against at King Ding's residence. This time, Helian Feng wanted to make it big. He wanted to make sure that there was no room for negotiation. In order to plan this matter, he endured and did not get close to Su Ruoyu. He did not want anyone to find out that something was wrong and it would affect their reputation. In any case, Su Ruoyu was now General Yun's adopted daughter. She could not do anything that was too out of line to avoid being discovered. Indeed, Ji Chengqiu did not know that he was being schemed against by Helian Feng. This matter was planned by Helian Feng's most trusted aide. The spy that the Prime Minister had planted in Prince Ding's residence was not at this level yet. Moreover, the matter of scheming against Tang Guo was very important. Only his two confidants knew about it. Even Su Ruoyu didn't know about it. Su Ruoyu gave Helian Feng all kinds of medicine. She might have forgotten that she once gave Helian Feng a kind of medicine that could make a martial artist faint instantly after taking it. Needless to say, with the medicine in Helian Feng's hands, Ji Chengqiu wouldn't be able to do much. She didn't have any intention of reminding him. How about she beat him at his own game? Since this was a gift from Helian Feng, she would reluctantly accept it. System, host, don't be such a dog. Tanghua, I'll give you a chance to reorganize your words. System, dear host, speaking of which, you two are really fated. Tanghua was thinking about how to perform that day. Taking Ji Chengqiu away calmly seemed to be too calm. Should she be angry, cold, or in despair? Should she have a mocking expression, scolded Helian Feng, divorced him, and accepted Helian Feng's gift in front of everyone? Peak. Chapter 4135. Then it was spread that Helian Feng, in order to harm her, the Ding Wangfei, did not hesitate to send her a man. Princess Ding divorced Prince Ding in a fit of anger and left with Prince Ding's gift. Just a little more. Right, when this rumor spread, she had to reveal Helian Feng and Su Ruoyu's secret to let the world see that Helian Feng really put in a lot of effort for Su Ruoyu. It turned out that Helian Feng murdered Princess Ding to make room for that evil spirit. At that time, who could say that she wasn't at all? For the sake of an evil spirit, he wanted to murder his legally wedded wife. Anyone who heard of it would scold him. Under the system's horrified gaze, Tanghua took out 2 more paper-cut puppets and said sourly, people who are pampered by their older brother are really different. Whatever you want, you can just take it out from the system space. These paper-cut puppets are piled up in her warehouse. As a system, you've learned to be sour. Little Tongzi, don't you have 2 system underlings? 111 even said that it would install a package for you. That's quite loyal. System, it's alright. 111 has already submitted to my power, and 222 is our little brother. He's very busy every day, and the host always wins without doing anything. That's why her score isn't high, and she doesn't get many points. Poor child. Speaking of which, how is my older brother? Is he happy being a cat? Can he transform into a human form with his current body? According to 111, it's difficult for them to transform into a human form in their current environment. They can only continue to evolve and increase their strength. They probably won't be able to transform even after completing the mission. Don't forget that your brother Wild's poop picker hasn't awakened an ability and can only live for a few decades. So it's like that. That's good too. Who is my older brother's poop picker? Is it a man or a woman? It's a girl. Now the plot has reached the girl's former pursuer. He's a scumbag who has awakened an ability. He saw that the girl was quite pretty and wanted to take her in as his harem. Of course, the consequences are very tragic. Brother Wild is now helping to take care of that scumbag. No wonder the girl likes cats and dogs. She can eat less, but the cat food must be good. No wonder before she died, she wanted the cat to leave quickly. It's obvious that she treats the cat as family. No wonder the cat had such a strong desire. Dear host, this is only one of the reasons. There is another reason why the cat has such a strong obsession. Tangua asked curiously, why? It doesn't eat cat food. It has always been the poop picker who made the cat food. Since the poop picker died, no one cleaned its poop, stroked its cat, or cooked for it. It thinks that the food stolen from the apocalypse is too disgusting. Tangua, as expected, it's the thoughts of a small animal. It's a little hard to understand. By the way, Madam Host, there's an additional suitor beside Wild Brother's poop picker. He looks rather sincere. According to 111, if nothing unexpected happens midway, this suitor will most likely win the girl's heart. Even Brother Wild has a good impression of him. This person seems to know some beast language. Now, your Brother Wild's life is much more relaxed. He doesn't have to worry about being shaved bald every day. That's good too. I hope my brother can go to the next world soon. I'm afraid he'll lose his mind if his hair is stroked every day. The system said weakly. Didn't she stroke a certain someone's hair every day? She didn't see him being shaved bald. On this day, the Daki Emperor held a palace banquet. Peak. Chapter 4136. The palace banquet was actually Daki's own banquet. Only officials of a certain rank were invited, as well as the wives and children of the officials. The appearance of the envoy from Beiwang country was a rather unexpected thing. The emperor wasn't surprised that the envoy from Beiwang country came. News of what happened last time had probably spread to Beiwang country. It was said that the Emperor of Beiwang and the Princess Royal doted on Ding Wang Fei very much. This time, they sent a messenger. Most likely, they had two meanings. One was to show to Qi that it was a warning. The other was to see how Ding Wang Fei was living. The Emperor had already told Helian Feng not to embarrass himself on the day of the banquet. Helian Feng agreed on the surface, but in fact, he was even more determined to embarrass Tangua on the day of the banquet. These few months, the Prime Minister had been going against him, mostly because of Ji Changqiu. He hated those brothers the most, but they all had strategists around them, so it wasn't as easy to make a move as before. The Prime Minister was a sly old fox. He knew that the other party was purposely targeting him. Since that was the case, he would make the other party pay the price. Didn't the sly old fox care about his only son? Then he would make Ji Changqiu fall into a perilous situation and see what the sly old fox would do. He could get rid of the burden in his residence and also attack the Prime Minister. Helian Feng was extremely happy about the arrival of the envoy from Beiwang country. Tangua sat in the carriage and arrived at the entrance of the palace. As expected, she saw Princess Lu Guang waiting there. Thus, the two of them entered together. Helian Feng had already entered the palace. Everyone seemed to be used to him not being with her. No one found it strange. The incident of Su Ruoyu being a demon seemed to have passed. Helian Feng didn't care about those rumors, and no one dared to say anything in front of him. No matter what, this was Prince Ding. They couldn't afford to offend him. They entered the palace and took their seats. Tangua saw the envoy from Beiwang country sitting in the envoy seat. There were two familiar faces among them. She searched her memory and smiled more. Weren't they the two trusted ministers of her emperor uncle? Of the two ministers, one was a smiling tiger. No one could tell what he was thinking. The other was very good at inverting right and wrong. It seemed that they wanted to do something big this time. How big they wanted to do was none of her business. Anyway, she was going to divorce Helian Feng tonight and take his present with her. System, you're still saying you're not a dog. TSK, 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 what a dog. The emissary group frequently looked at Tangua's position. Tangua nodded to them, and they no longer looked at her. According to the normal procedure, they would still have the opportunity to meet after the palace banquet. However, the situation this time was special. After the palace banquet, they would probably return together. At the start of the banquet, the Emperor of Great Qi appeared. After exchanging greetings with everyone, it was time for everyone to present their gifts. Among them, Helian Feng's gift was the most outstanding. It was actually another medicine formula. Previously, Helian Feng had taken out anti-inflammatory drugs and hemostatic drugs, which were very precious in Daki. This time, the formula of the medicine was still shocking. It was actually a miraculous medicine for treating typhoid. Helian Feng was in the limelight and received the emperor's praise. In such an environment, once one contracted typhoid fever, it was very easy to die. Now that this prescription had appeared, even though it could not guarantee a 100% cure, it did increase the survival rate of typhoid fever. Vertex. Chapter 4137. After an examination by the imperial physicians, they discovered that the herbs required for this recipe were all commonly seen. In other words, the cost was very low and ordinary people could use it. Once this recipe was popularized throughout Daki, the Daki emperor's reputation as a wise ruler would be indisputable. After the presentation of the gifts, it was time for the real banquet. Everyone could eat while watching the performances. They were even allowed to walk around the palace. Of course, the permitted area was not much, but it was enough for everyone to see. This was an extremely rare opportunity. Princess Lu Guang originally wanted to take Tangguo for a walk around. Even though she was a princess, she could not enter the palace as she pleased. Even if she could, it was rare for her to have a look around. Then, I won't go either. Princess Lu Guang felt that Tangguo did not seem to have many friends. Although she wanted to take a look, she decided to stay by Tangguo's side to keep her company. Dear host, there is a problem with the newly added fruit wine. It was drugged by Helian Feng's people. Hearing the system's words, Tangguo poured herself a glass of fruit wine and drank it. Sure enough, as soon as she drank it, she felt dizzy, as if she could not handle the alcohol. Red Date immediately noticed that Tangguo's cheeks were a little red. She recalled Tangguo's instructions and told Red Date about Helian Feng's plan. She was both distressed and angry about Tangguo's plan to beat them at their own game. But this plan had to be carried out. In the princess's words, they had to beat Helian Feng to the ground. What's wrong, princess? Helian Feng, who had never cared much about Tangguo, suddenly walked to her side and stared at her red cheeks. Are you drunk? Without waiting for Tangguo to answer, he called 2 palace maids over. Princess is a little drunk. Help her to rest for a while. Tangguo didn't refuse, and Red Jujube followed her loyally, carefully supporting her. Princess Lu Guang also followed along. Only when Tangguo was sent to the room and learned that this place was for drunken guests did she feel relieved and leave. To read well, Red Jujube had to stay by Tangguo's side to take care of her, so the 2 palace maids tried to get close to her. Seeing that she was tired, they even poured water for her. Red Date knew that there was something wrong with the water, so he pretended to drink it. In fact, he spat it out on a handkerchief that he had prepared beforehand. Under the anticipation of the 2 palace maids, Red Date fell asleep. She was a martial artist and an expert. Of course, she knew that when one was asleep, one's breathing was very long. The 2 palace maids checked and found that there was no problem. Then, they sneaked out. Not long after, Red Date heard movement coming from the window. Someone jumped in from there. From the sound of the person's footsteps, it was clear that the person's martial arts skills were not bad. He was going straight for Tanguo. Red Date was very anxious, but she did not reveal anything. This was what the princess had told her from the beginning. Everything was under the princess's control. She was incomparably glad that the princess had secretly planted someone by Feng's side. Otherwise, she wouldn't have known that the other party had such vicious thoughts. Since Tanguo had planted someone in Hao, Red Date did not think about it at all. In her opinion, Tanguo was resourceful, smart, and capable. She was a powerful woman. Was there a need to inform her when her master was doing something like this? Perhaps, when the princess came to Dichi, she brought someone else with her. When the person left through the window again, Red Date woke up and looked at the bed. Sure enough, Tanguo was gone. Just as your highness expected, they took the shoe with them. Red Date walked to the window and looked at the 2 embroidered shoes' footprints on the window. Her face turned ugly. Did they want to make it look like the princess ran out on her own? Feng, that bastard, vicious and shameless. The Peak. Chapter 4138. Tanguo was carried by someone and taken to another room. That person threw her onto the bed and left through the window. After the person left, she opened her eyes. Indeed, there was a handsome man lying beside her. The handsome Prime Minister's son was looking at her with his eyes wide open and his face flushed red. There was no desire in his eyes, only anger. Let's go. Ji Changqiu squeezed out these 2 words from between his teeth. He didn't know how he fell for it. He was so guarded. Feng was too strange. But when he thought of Su Ruoyu, he didn't find it strange. He could only blame himself for underestimating Su Ruoyu's ability. Feng being able to scheme against him without anyone noticing most likely had something to do with Su Ruoyu. Prime Minister's son, are you drugged? Ji Changqiu, since you know, why are you still talking so much nonsense? Can't you see that he's in pain? Tanguo glanced at the blanket covering Ji Changqiu and lifted it up. She found that he had tied her hands and feet with strips of cloth. Horror appeared on Ji Changqiu's cold face. He was thinking, could it be that she was drugged as well? This was bad. He could control himself, but others might not be able to. Tanguo sized Ji Changqiu up. That burning gaze made Ji Changqiu even more certain that she was drugged. She wasn't like this usually. He didn't know what kind of strange drug Feng had used. He was too careless. He didn't expect that Feng would harm both of them. Actually, Feng was able to succeed because of his and Su Ruoyu's ability and the halo around them. Compared to Ji Changqiu and the Prime Minister, the palace was Feng's home. It was hard to guard against him when he did something. Tanguo was still sizing him up. Ji Changqiu closed his eyes. Ding Princess Consort, don't be rash. If this happens, Changqiu's life will be worthless. It won't be good for you. Ji Changqiu already knew what would happen to the 2 of them if this happened. Perhaps he wouldn't die, but this was something that his father had fought for with his life. As for this Princess Yuan, she would be scolded by the citizens of Daqi and Beiwang country. She would suffer more than death. Ding Wangfei, cover this one with the blanket. Since you have the strength to lift the blanket, why don't you jump out of the window? System, host, hurry up and cover yourself. I'm shy. Hurry up. You're not even married yet and you're already lifting my blanket. People in ancient times are more reserved and disciplined. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Tanguo covered Ji Changqiu with the blanket again. She heard him exhale heavily, as if he had just overcome some kind of disaster. Tangwa didn't climb out. Instead, she sat on a chair beside the bed. Is Princess Ding's body weak? Ji Changqiu looked at Tangwa's footsteps. They were indeed a little messy. It was probably caused by the Chinese medicine. He was a little anxious. Unfortunately, after he was hit, everything that could notify people outside had been taken away by the other party. Tangwa rested her chin on her hand and looked at Ji Changqiu's flushed but cold face. Not bad. Since that's fine, let's get out. Going out like this, I'm a little unwilling. Ji Changqiu, when Tangwa said this, Ji Changqiu felt that he had heard a second meaning. If it wasn't for his face being red, he would have been seen as abnormal. Peak. Chapter 41-39. The enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. If we want to take revenge, we have to think about it at length. Ji Changqiu persuaded. But I am an impatient person. I can't wait. Tangwa stroked the hair that fell by her ear and said faintly, there are many people tonight. Let's take revenge tonight. Ji Changqiu's heart spun a few times. Now that he had calmed down, he realized that although Tangwa's situation was a little strange, it didn't seem like she had been drugged. Actually, those two palace maids did pour a cup of water for Tangwa. It was that kind of medicine. However, she didn't drink this kind of medicine. Tonight's matter, was it within Princess Ding's expectations? Ji Changqiu understood. No wonder she was so calm. He felt a little sour in his heart. If everything went according to her plan, then wouldn't she be watching her husband plot against her step by step? The marriage alliance wasn't proposed by her but by De Qi. It wasn't someone who forced Prince Ding, but he himself agreed. Why did it seem like she had become a heinous person in Prince Ding's eyes? Perhaps this was because she didn't enter the other party's eyes and blocked his path. No matter what, he had to get rid of her. Tangwa admitted, Prime Minister's son doesn't need to do anything. Just suffer for a while and lie there obediently. It will be fine in a while. Ji Changqiu felt that these words were strange. What did she mean by lying there obediently and it will be fine in a while? No matter how he heard it, it didn't sound right. Just as Tangwa finished speaking, the door was pushed open. Ji Changqiu looked at the door a little nervously but saw an unfamiliar girl dressed as a palace maid. Princess, are you all right? The palace maid hurriedly walked to Tangwa's side. Tangwa shook her head, I'm fine. Have they all been caught? They have all been caught. Princess, don't worry. Not a single one escaped. This time, Helian Feng is finished. This palace maid was Red Date's younger sister, Qing Zhao. Ji Changqiu didn't recognize her but he understood that she was one of Tangwa's people and felt relieved. After Qing Zhao came in, she didn't go out. She quietly stood beside Tangwa without saying a word, as if she was invisible. For the time it took to brew 2 cups of tea, the master and servant did not speak. The room was extremely quiet. Even Ji Changqiu felt that the heat in his body seemed to have encountered something cool, and he didn't feel as uncomfortable anymore. He simply closed his eyes and waited for what would happen next. There was nothing he could do now. Prime Minister's son, are you feeling unwell? When he heard Tangwa's words, Ji Changqiu replied without opening his eyes, it's fine. I can still endure it. After he was hit earlier, he had already made up his mind that no matter who came later, no one was allowed to get close to him. The trauma that Su Ruoyu had left on him was still there. He had already thought it through. If he really couldn't resist, he would bite his tongue and commit suicide. It was better than being humiliated and then having his father slander him. If he died because of this, then the person who plotted against him would not only gain nothing, but would also embarrass the emperor, and his father would not be criticized because of this. That's good. Just now, I saw that you tied yourself up very tightly. Your hands are all bruised. This should be caused by the lack of blood circulation. Are you really all right? It was clearly not a good situation, but Ji Changqiu's heart felt warm. Didn't Ding Wangfei say that it would be fine in a while? I don't think it will take long for the people outside to arrive. The two did not speak again. The system reminded Tang Guo that a large group of people was coming over. Of course, they were deliberately led here. This room was not for the guests from outside the palace to rest. It was for the people who were tired from walking to rest and drink tea. The Peak. Chapter 41-40. Therefore, it wasn't strange for her to bring someone here and push open the door. But under normal circumstances, they would come here during the day and would rarely come at night. Hearing the messy footsteps outside, Ji Changqiu's heart tightened. He didn't know what kind of show she had arranged. Although he didn't know the details, he wasn't worried at all. It was really strange. The sound of chatter and laughter accompanied the sound of footsteps. The door was pushed open. Just as it was pushed open, someone screamed as if they saw something they shouldn't see. The people outside were very curious about what was inside the room. Su Ruoyu was also there. Su Ruoyu looked at the room and thought, could it be that someone was having an affair in the room and was discovered? She looked at the people around her. They were all famous young ladies and young masters in the capital. If today's matter was exposed, then it would be a big matter. Because of the rash, Su Ruoyu had been wearing a veil. She didn't plan to take off her veil until the very end. Therefore, no one had discovered that the current Yun Nuo looked exactly the same as the previous Su Ruoyu, except that there was an additional mole on her face. Because of her magnanimous actions, no one suspected anything. What's inside? Why are you making such a fuss? Su Ruoyu scanned the room and found that all the familiar faces were here. She had paid special attention to Tang Guo. Excluding the people who didn't come, wasn't there only one Tang Guo left? Previously, Tang Guo seemed to be unable to hold her liquor and was sent to rest by Helian Fang's two palace maids. Could it be that she was faking her inability to hold her liquor? It was Helian Feng who neglected her and wasn't willing to touch her. So she couldn't stand the loneliness and had an affair. Su Ruoyu's mind filled in a drama and her heart was filled with disdain. She felt that the high and mighty image of Ding Wangfei instantly collapsed in her heart. This kind of person who couldn't stand the loneliness and made Helian Feng wear a green hat, was she worthy of being Ding Wangfei? Originally, she thought that she didn't care about this Ding Wangfei. Since the other party didn't cherish it, then she wouldn't be polite. Su Ruoyu hurriedly squeezed in. She wanted to take a good look at Tang Guo and the wild man's ugly behavior. She never thought that she would see Tang Guo dressed properly and sitting on a chair with an unfamiliar face standing behind her. The master and servant didn't say a word. They didn't move at all, as if they were made of wood. Even the person who had screamed earlier realized that something was wrong. Of course, everyone also saw that there was a person lying on the bed. When they saw that person's face, they were in an uproar. Isn't that the Prime Minister's son? The Prime Minister's son's expression didn't look right. Ding Wangfei, Prime Minister's son, what are you doing? Those who knew Tang Guo and Ji Changqiu couldn't help but voice their opinions. Although they didn't do anything wrong, it was taboo. If it weren't for Qing Zhao, they wouldn't have been able to stop themselves from thinking about other things. But the situation in front of them was obviously not right. Tang Guo finally raised her head and swept her gaze across everyone's faces. Her gaze finally landed on the eldest prince's face. "Eldest sister-in-law, I'll have to trouble you to invite the emperor, the prime minister and the envoys from Beiwang country over." "That's right, Prince Ding should also come over. This matter isn't a big deal, but it isn't a small one either." The eldest princess consort felt that something was wrong. But seeing this situation, she still nodded and turned to invite them over. After a while, the emperor's arrival was announced. Everyone moved aside and bowed. Tangua didn't stand up. She was still sitting on that chair and Qing Zhao didn't move either. The emperor was still displeased when he saw this. But when he saw Ji Changqiu on the bed, his expression changed. The peak. Chapter 41-41. The Prime Minister saw Ji Changqiu first and almost jumped up. His son was schemed against again. Which bastard schemed against him? Hellion Feng. The Prime Minister glared fiercely at Hellion Feng, gritting his teeth so hard that the sound of grinding could be heard. His colleagues beside him all heard it and hurriedly moved away. "Changqiu, how are you?" The Prime Minister could tell that something was wrong with the situation. The other party's scheme seemed to have failed for some reason. His son seemed to have fallen into the trap, but this princess consort Ding didn't. Although he was very happy that this princess consort Ding would be his daughter-in-law in the future, he couldn't have such a relationship at this time. He couldn't help but look at Tangguo again. He felt that this woman was worthy of his son's fancy. She was just so capable. With such a smart woman, he didn't have to worry that his son would be bullied for the rest of his life. Acting was the most basic skill of a prime minister. The prime minister turned from anger to a crying old father. He was sad, pained, and angry. With red eyes, he rushed to the side of the bed and lifted the blanket. What he saw was Ji Changqiu's hands that were tied up until they turned purple. "Changqiu, how are you? Are you feeling unwell? Don't be afraid. Father is here." The originally serious scene was instantly dispelled by the Prime Minister's actions. "Your hands are bruised. I don't know if you will become disabled. Father will help you untie it immediately." The Prime Minister's actions were clumsy. Ji Changqiu had tied himself up too tightly with a cloth strip. There were many knots in the middle. It was easy to tie himself up but difficult to untie. Read, Qing Zhao, go and help. If this continues, the Prime Minister's son will be disabled. Qing Zhao walked over and the Prime Minister hurriedly moved aside. Qing Zhao grabbed the cloth strip and it broke into pieces. Such a ferocious look shocked everyone. With Qing Zhao's actions, everyone was even more certain that nothing had happened in the room tonight. Then they couldn't help but guess. Could it be that Qing Zhao had tied up the Prime Minister's son? "Changqiu, what happened?" the Prime Minister asked. Ji Changqiu frowned and moved his hands. "Father, I was knocked out and brought here. I was then drugged. At that time, I was the only one in the room. I was afraid that I would lose my innocence, so I tied myself up." In his heart, he was still thinking that if someone forced him, he would bite his tongue and commit suicide. Ji Changqiu's cold and cheerless appearance was indeed pitiful. Other things aside, the Prime Minister's son's appearance was definitely top-notch. If it weren't for his illness, who knew how many girls would be willing to marry him? When they heard him say that he wanted to protect his innocence, no one actually felt that it was a sense of peace. After I tied myself up, the door was pushed open again. I saw a man in black carrying a woman in. Later on, they found out that this was Ding Wangfei. Luckily, Princess Ding was still conscious. After that person left, she moved over to sit. Not long after, Princess Ding's maidservant Qing Zhao came over. After that, many people came to this room. Ding Wangfei, may I ask if the matter is like this? The Prime Minister asked. Tang Guo said, that is indeed the case. Her voice was a little weak and cold, which gave people a bad feeling. She just sat there and didn't move at all. Even when the emperor came, she didn't show any expression. Helian Feng stood behind the emperor and pursed his lips tightly. He was thinking that such a good opportunity had actually failed. Su Ruoyu was also very disappointed. Was she actually framed by someone? The peak. Chapter 41-42. Someone, go and investigate who dared to frame Princess Ding and the Prime Minister's son. Of course, the Emperor didn't believe that these two people would be together. It was obvious that someone wanted to frame them. When he said this, he even looked deeply at Helian Feng. So troublesome. He actually had such an idea. It was fine if he succeeded. Now that he didn't succeed, it was best not to leave any evidence that could be used against him. Otherwise, he didn't know how to clean up the mess. No need. Tang Guo suddenly spoke up and attracted everyone's attention. The emperor was stunned and he didn't understand. The other people were thinking, could it be that Princess Ding had a guilty conscience? Did she really have something with the Prime Minister's son? I've already investigated everything clearly. Today, I invited His Majesty, the Prime Minister, and Prince Ding over to resolve this matter. Tang Guo raised her eyes and her gaze landed on Helian Feng. I really want to ask Prince Ding a question. Everyone's heart tightened. Something must have happened. What question couldn't be asked behind closed doors? Why did it have to be asked here? Everyone's gossiping fire was already burning fiercely. With so many people, the emperor couldn't silence them after hearing this secret. It was a rare opportunity, so they must listen. Helian Feng didn't quite understand, but he still asked, Princess Consort, are you still drunk? We have been married for 4 years and Prince Ding actually doesn't know. I won't get drunk even after 1,000 cups. No matter how strong the wine is, it is all water to me. Tang herself was indeed not drunk. The original owner also wasn't drunk, so she wasn't lying. This matter was known to everyone in Beiwang country who was familiar with her. Helian Feng's heart skipped a beat. He felt that something was going to happen tonight. Prince Ding, at first, I thought you were avoiding me because you were afraid of my identity. A few months ago, I finally understood that you didn't see my wallpaper because there was a problem with your body. At that time, I wanted to ask you. Since you were sick, why did you agree to the political marriage? Since you were sick, why did countless people slander me in these 3 years but you still stood there and watched coldly, allowing me to take the blame for you? A few months ago, you found a woman who could help you recover. It was a pity that she was a demon in everyone's eyes. You being able to recover was because of that demon's methods. Later on, that demon was burned at the stake, and this matter was temporarily put aside. However, I never would have thought that you wanted my life. What I never would have thought even more was that you wanted my life to make room for the demon. So, Prince Ding, a wife who has been married to you for 4 years actually can't compare to a demon who can make you a man, right? In order to make room for this demon, you really put in a lot of effort. Helian Feng didn't know how to describe his expression. How could this be? How did she know so much? Who told her? He had planned everything so carefully. To be safe, he didn't even tell you, about what had happened today. Only his 2 trusted aides knew that the people in the palace who were doing things did not know that he was the one behind all this. Your Highness, you're really drunk. Helian Feng sensed everyone's strange gazes on him and the emperor's unsightly expression, so he pretended to be righteous. The emperor's heart was also very flustered. This matter did not seem to be quite right, and he could not hide it any longer. He saw that Tang Guo was so calm. Most likely, she had some evidence. There was also the emissary group. Unexpectedly, no one stood out to speak, as if they were calmly observing this matter. His heart jumped. Could it be that they had already communicated beforehand? Everything that Old Third did was carried out under their noses, and they were just waiting for this to happen? Thinking of this, the emperor's vision turned black. Qing Zhao, bring them in. Tang Guo turned around to look at the prime minister. May your majesty please arrange for 2 people to bring my personal maid, Red Date, over. She's still waiting over there. I remember that the person who brought me over even specially used my shoes to leave 2 shoe prints on the window. Prince Ding, you're so thoughtful. Su Ruoyu didn't dare to utter a word. She stood silently in the crowd, not saying a word. When everyone was brought in, Helian Feng looked at those people and almost fainted. Among these people, not only were there people who were involved in everything, there were also his 2 trusted aides. He widened his eyes. He didn't understand why his 2 trusted aides would betray him. Tang Guo gently pursed her lips. Helian Feng's trusted aides naturally wouldn't betray him, but what if his trusted aides had been replaced by the puppet, Papercut, from the beginning? The apex. Chapter 41-43. Tang Guo was still sitting on the chair, waiting for Red Date to come over. She turned around to look at Ji Changqiu, who was sitting on the bed with a red face and bruises on his hands. Prime Minister's son doesn't look well. I wonder if the imperial physician is here yet. Tang Guo was still very rude. Daki's emperor was unhappy about this. However, at this time, it was obvious that something was wrong, so he didn't dare to blame her. The trouble that his 3rd son caused today couldn't be solved easily. If he didn't care about his image, he would have gritted his teeth and scolded Helian Feng. He already understood what was going on. It was Helian Feng's doing. He was caught red-handed. Even if he knew what the result was, he could only pretend that he was busy and didn't know. He was sullen in his heart. If Prime Minister's son doesn't mind, you can use the physician we brought. In terms of medical skills, I can guarantee that they are not inferior to Daki's imperial physicians. The person who spoke was the representative of the envoy, Hao Qi. He was eloquent and always had a friendly smile on his face. The emperor saw that Ji Changqiu was about to faint at any time and the prime minister's cold expression, so he didn't stop this. His 3rd son was an idiot. Of all people, why did he have to mess with the prime minister's precious child? This old man only had 1 son. If something really happened to him, wouldn't he fight him to the death? Although the prime minister's occasional words were infuriating, compared to some prosperous families, a prime minister with only 1 son was more reassuring. This prime minister didn't have any intention of remarrying, so there was no need to be too afraid. Idiot, idiot, his 3rd son was an idiot. It was good to mess with the imperial tutor's residence. Recently, the imperial tutor's residence was extremely arrogant. Why did he have to mess with the prime minister? It was Tang Guo's idea for the envoy to bring the physician over. She had already expected that Ji Changqiu would have some problems with his body after being drugged. The prime minister saw that there was a physician to treat his son and was slightly relieved. His gaze towards Helian Feng became more and more unfriendly. Today, he wanted to see how Prince Ding would explain himself. Finally, Red Date arrived. Red Date walked directly behind Tang Guo. She was completely unharmed and did not look like she had been drugged. Helian Feng and the 2 palace maids' faces darkened. Looks like everyone is here. Then let's start with you guys. Tell me how this good husband of mine in name wants my life. Tangguo pointed at Hellion Fang's two trusted aides. Hellion Fang glared at his two trusted aides. If they were really his trusted aides, they might have already understood that Hellion Fang wanted them to commit suicide. However, this was all arranged by Tangguo in advance. They ignored Hellion Fang's meaningful glance and knelt on the ground with a thump, telling him how Hellion Fang had arranged for them to frame Tangguo. Master said that this move will not only prevent Ji Changqiu from making a comeback, but it will also remove the princess consort and make room for Miss Su. Su Ruoyu didn't die. Someone grasped this crucial point. The person who asked was naturally not the princess. If they asked something at this time, it would be easy for the emperor to bear a grudge. Now that things were more or less set in stone, why did they have to do something unnecessary? They might as well watch how Hellion Fang died. The person who asked was Prince Zhong. His expression changed. He thought that the evildoer Su Ruoyu had already been burned to death. He didn't expect Hellion Fang to actually protect her. If that was the case, wouldn't Hellion Fang be disobeying in public and committing the crime of being a monarch? Peak. Chapter 41-44. She didn't die. Miss Su had all kinds of accidents in the past and her reputation was almost ruined. Master was worried that he didn't have an excuse to give her another chance. Taking advantage of the people outside wanting Miss Su's life, Master thought about it and changed her appearance. With a good identity, there wouldn't be any obstacles when she enters Ding Wangfei in the future. When the emperor heard the confidant's big words, he wanted to pull out a knife and cut off his head. Old Third, that idiot, how did he raise the people around him? He actually dared to keep such a disloyal person as a confidant. Prince Zhong didn't care about this. He continued to ask. In his heart, he was thinking that since Su Ruoyu was still alive and it was Hellion Fang who did it, the hatred in his heart was shared with Hellion Fang. If Su Ruoyu was really protected by Hellion Fang and her identity was changed, he couldn't help but wonder how much his good imperial brother knew about this matter. Prince Zhong couldn't help but look at the Emperor of Diqi. Seeing the slight embarrassment on his face, he understood. His good imperial brother knew about this matter. As expected, they were father and son. Since it's like this, then what about Su Ruoyu? Prince Zhong continued to ask. Since this was what Ding Wangfei wanted, then if everyone wanted to know, then he would ask. It could be considered a small help to Ding Wangfei. Hellion Fang's confidant spoke again. Su Ruoyu is the current General Yun's adopted daughter, Yun Nuo. When these words fell, everyone was in an uproar. Yun Nuo was Su Ruoyu. Everyone quickly found Su Ruoyu in the crowd. Seeing that she was still wearing a veil, their eyes were filled with inquiry and some realization. No wonder this Yun Nuo wore a veil when she appeared. She even said that she had a rash on her face and scared others, so she wore a veil to hide her ugliness. Even so, there were very few people in the capital who made a fuss about Su Ruoyu's appearance. It was mainly because Su Ruoyu, who had returned, knew how to conduct herself. Occasionally, she would show her talent in a low-key manner. It really made people forget what she looked like. Moreover, Su Ruoyu's figure wasn't bad. Many people guessed that she shouldn't be ugly. Su Ruoyu saw that everyone was looking at her and her heart panicked. However, she acted calm on the surface. Don't slander me. I'm not Su Ruoyu. I grew up in the border. It was father's kindness to adopt me. Her soft and gentle voice made people feel a little puzzled. Many of the people present had seen Su Ruoyu and heard her speak. Judging from her figure, Yun Nuo was much thinner than Su Ruoyu. She behaved well and was much better than Su Ruoyu. Prince Zhong was also a wily old fox, so how could he be intimidated by Su Ruo's words? He immediately asked, "You grew up at the border, so let me ask you, what is the most common plant at the border? What kind of food do the people at the border usually eat? What's the weather like at the border all year round?" Su Ruoyu couldn't say a word after hearing the three most common questions. She stuttered for a long time and couldn't say anything. In the end, she said very softly, "My body has been weak since I was young, so I rarely go out." No one believed him. Even if he rarely went out, he should at least know the weather, right? Alright, then let me ask you a question. Since you were raised in a boudoir since you were young, have you ever seen the gardenia flowers at the border? How are the flowers blooming in this season? Do you usually instruct the maidservants to prepare some for you in the room? Or do you have some in the courtyard? Don't think that these questions were simple. People who hadn't lived at the border wouldn't know common knowledge. Every place would be suitable for different plants to grow because of the difference in water, soil, and climate. Peak. Chapter 41-45. Su Ruoyu's heart was spinning in circles as countless thoughts spun around in her head. When Prince Xiong asked her about gardenia flowers, he obviously treated her as an ordinary girl. If an ordinary girl heard Prince Xiong mention gardenia flowers, she would definitely be impatient and say that she had seen gardenia flowers before. In fact, she guessed that there were no gardenia flowers at the border. In such a chaotic place, no one would be in the mood to take care of flowers and plants. Su Ruoyu did not panic and replied confidently, "Prince Xiong probably remembered wrongly. How could there be gardenia flowers at the border? Ha 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 ha." Prince Xiong stroked his beard and laughed when he heard that. Helian Feng's face was already pale. He did not know if these people did it on purpose, but he could not give Su Ruoyu any hint. "Father, what are you laughing at?" Princess Lu Guang stood beside Prince Xiong and looked at Su Ruoyu. So this Yun Nuo was Su Ruoyu. No wonder she felt uncomfortable at first sight. No wonder Sister Guo told her to stay away. Father would not lie to her. It was not wrong to let her walk around with Sister Guo. Sister Guo was such a good girl. She really did not know why her cousin did not like her and even wanted to kill her. Sister Guo was smart and a princess with a high status. Otherwise, her innocence would have been sullied without anyone noticing. Father, laugh at her ignorance, laugh at her short-sightedness, laugh at her thinking that we are all fools. Prince Xiong patted Princess Lu Guang's head. Father will tell Lu Guang that there is only one kind of flower at the border. That place is most suitable for gardenia flowers. They are everywhere. As long as there is soil, you can see gardenia flowers. Especially in summer, the fragrance of gardenia flowers will spread throughout the entire border. Legend has it that the soldiers at the border nourish the flowers with their flesh and blood. Every household at the border will plant them. Su Ruoyu almost fainted when she heard that. When she went to the border, it was almost winter. How could she see gardenia flowers? Did Prince Xiong and his daughter have a grudge against her? Do you have anything else to say? If not, why don't you take off your veil and let people know? Prince Xiong continued to add fuel to the fire. Su Ruoyu didn't want to, but the person beside her pulled off her veil, revealing Su Ruoyu's face. Su Ruoyu was still quibbling. "I'm not Su Ruoyu, She is indeed not Su Ruoyu." Helian Feng also spoke up for Su Ruoyu. He walked in front of Su Ruoyu and looked at the mole under her eye. "I remember clearly that Su Ruoyu doesn't have a mole here." Pfft. Tangua couldn't help but laugh out loud, attracting everyone's attention. She didn't keep them in suspense and said, "Miss Su, do you think that everyone is a fool?" Adding a mole to one's face only required a tattoo. If Miss Sue still wants to quibble, I don't mind asking a doctor to help you wash that mole off your face. Helian Fang's expression instantly became a bit awkward. His gaze towards Tang Guo was very unfriendly. Wang Fei, what exactly do you want to do? I should be the one asking Prince Ding this question. Prince Ding, what exactly do you want to do? You want my life just to make room for Su Ruoyu. Helian Feng looked at the two confidants and said, Wang Fu, those two people are not this prince's confidants at all. They are fakes. Is it real or fake? Prince Ding, do you want to see if there is a human skin mask on their faces? When Prince Xiong heard that, he felt that his part was here again. Chapter 41-46. Your Majesty, why don't we get someone to check their identities? When the Emperor heard this, he could only agree. There was no turning back for today's matter. The emissary group from Beiwang country didn't do anything about this matter. It could be seen that they were well prepared. Admit defeat. After checking their identities, Helian Feng couldn't quibble anymore. No matter how he checked, these two people were his trusted aides. I once heard that Prince Ding was an indomitable and brave man. Therefore, when I heard that Daqi and Beiwang country were going to have a marriage alliance, I agreed to this matter. I did this willingly and can't blame anyone else. However, the truth is that Prince Ding was sick and hid it from me. Later on, because Prince Ding found someone who could cure you, you couldn't wait to get rid of me. You have disappointed me too much. Not only did you want to get rid of me, but you also wanted to humiliate me and humiliate my Beiwang country. Have you ever thought that I am still the princess of Beiwang country? If you really had your way, how many people would my Beiwang country become a joke? Tang Guo's voice turned cold. Prince Ding, you keep mentioning this matter. Are you trying to destroy the friendly relationship between Daqi and Beiwang country? You don't care about me and my Beiwang country. You want to use me to frame Beiwang country and ruin its reputation. What are your intentions? Helian Feng didn't expect such a huge accusation to be placed on him. The Emperor wasn't surprised. After all, the emissary group didn't do anything. Weren't they waiting for this moment? Daqi's Emperor, since the matter has been investigated clearly, we would like to ask you on behalf of His Majesty. What is the meaning of Prince Ding's actions? Hao Qi retracted his smiling face and became solemn. Daqi's Emperor, from the very beginning, you guys were not sincere in making friends with us. You hid the fact that Prince Ding is a disabled person from us. If Prince Ding was considerate, we would let it go. However, we heard that Princess Yuan has been staying alone in her courtyard for the past 4 years. Every year, she would not meet Prince Ding more than 3 times. Doesn't this prove that Prince Ding looks down on our Beiwang country and our princess and wants our princess to be a decoration in his residence? Emperor of Deqi, you should know that Princess Yuan is the most honorable princess of Beiwang country and not just a decoration like you think. Secondly, Prince Ding actually wanted to murder Princess Yuan for a woman who could make him a man. He even used such a despicable method. Emperor of Daqi, I believe that you are unaware of this matter. Hao Qi said, because I don't believe that the Emperor of Deqi would make such a stupid decision. Daqi Emperor, however, since it has already happened, you still need to give us an explanation. Of course, this matter is not urgent. First, we would like to hear how Princess Yuan intends to resolve this matter. After all of our observations, we all understand that Daqi is not suitable for Princess Yuan's life. Our honorable Princess Yuan deserves the best treatment, not to be ignored and trampled on like this. Hao Qi's gaze landed on Tang Guo. Princess Yuan, what do you think of Prince Ding? This time, Tangua stood up and looked straight at Hellion Fong. Since Prince Ding is so heartless and wants to harm my life, I really don't dare to stay in Daki's territory. Therefore, I have decided to divorce him today. Tangua took out a letter of divorce that she had prepared long ago from her sleeve and threw it directly at Hellion Feng's face. Peek. Chapter 41-47. Hellion Feng had some skills and quickly received the letter. Looking at the content of the letter, his expression turned ugly and he wanted to say that he would not allow it. Tangua sneered, "I'm just informing you. You don't have the right to refuse. Prince Ding, what you have done is not over yet. I have always valued the friendship between our two countries, but Prince Ding and I are not of the same mind. After I leave, I still hope that the relationship between our two countries can be amicable. I believe that other than Prince Ding, everyone else thinks the same. Since Princess Yuan has made a decision, this is also our Beiwang country's intention. It is already very late today. Daki's emperor, there are some things that we can discuss in detail tomorrow. How about it?" Hao Qi said with a fake smile. Things were going too smoothly. Princess Yuan was too awesome and had all kinds of evidence. This time, Daki did not dare to say anything. "Men, throw Prince Ding and Su Ruoyu into the imperial prison." The emperor was so angry that he really wanted to lock them up and behead them. After leaving the palace, Tangua did not return to Prince Ding's residence. She was no longer Princess Ding. She was followed by a large group of envoys. Even if the emperor sealed the news today, it was impossible. A night of fermenting was enough to make Hellion Feng a sinner of Daki. Sure enough, when the sun rose the next day, the entire capital knew about what Hellion Feng had done. Hellion Feng's image had already fallen. Now, they heard that he wanted to kill Tangua because of a demon. Everyone felt that Su Ruoyu was indeed a demon. Countless people wrote blood letters saying that Su Ruoyu must be eliminated. Otherwise, it would endanger Daki. Because of Su Ruoyu, Beiwang country and Daki almost became enemies with them. They did not know what would happen in the future. At this moment, Tangua was looking at the conditions listed by the group of envoys. "Princess, do you think this is okay?" Hao Qi asked. He was just asking casually. The conditions here were enough to make Daki's emperor vomit blood, but they were still acceptable. Tangua nodded. "Add one more condition." "Add what?" When the group of envoys came, they came with the mission to ask for compensation from Daki. The power to decide on this matter was really in Tangua's hands. Whatever she wanted to add, they discussed as much as possible. "I was very dissatisfied with the fact that Daki matched me with an ugly girl. Now that everyone knows that this is my second marriage, it doesn't sound good. I'm afraid that it won't be so easy to find another marriage in the future." Hao Qi almost burst out laughing. How could that be? The princess was young, beautiful, and resourceful. She was well versed in literature and martial arts. There were plenty of people who wanted the princess. Why would she dislike her? She was the one who despised other people, right? "You had the Chi's emperor compensate me with a husband." That day, this consort happened to glance at the prime minister's son. He was rather handsome. Since Hellion Feng has given the prime minister's son to this consort as a gift, then this consort will do as he wishes and accept it. Hao Qi was at a loss for words. Who didn't know that the prime minister's son was the prime minister's precious treasure? If it really was a condition, that old man would probably jump up and beat him up. "Princess, the chances of success are not high." Tangua waved her hand nonchalantly. "Whether it's successful or not, you can discuss it first. If the prime minister's son doesn't agree, 100 or 80 other handsome men will do. Anyway, Dechi's emperor has to compensate. How chi? Alright, he would give it a try. If Dechi could really compensate the princess's husband, then Dechi would lose face again. After the emperor read through all the conditions, he almost vomited blood. He had bargained a little for the first condition, but for the second condition, Princess Yuan wanted him to compensate her with a husband. She even said that the prime minister's son that Helian Feng had given her was acceptable. If the prime minister's son didn't agree, then he could give her 100 or 80 handsome men. 100 or 80 handsome men, it probably wouldn't be from an ordinary family. Then he might as well give up his position as emperor. The emperor thought for a while and could only summon the prime minister into the palace. Sure enough, that old man jumped up high, his beard curling up in anger. He almost pointed at him and scolded him. Dechi's emperor originally didn't want to raise Beiwang country. After all, they were equally powerful. But this time, the emissary group revealed something to him. It was about Beiwang country's power and that Beiwang country wasn't afraid of war. He was a little scared. If the two countries went to war because of Helian Feng, he would probably be scolded badly. Not only would he be laughed at, he would also be scolded for being muddle-headed. Therefore, the emperor complained to the prime minister with a pitiful face and even said that Princess Yuan specifically asked for the prime minister's son. In reality, the prime minister was overjoyed. On the surface, he looked angry. In the end, he sighed. Your Majesty, how do you want to deal with Prince Ding? His son had to be sent and Prince Ding had to be dealt with. He couldn't be short of benefits. Remove his title and deprive him of his permanent inheritance. The emperor also had his own intentions. He felt that with Su Ruoyu around, Helian Feng wasn't reliable. Since your Majesty is so righteous, then I will go back and discuss with Changqiu. The prime minister said with a downcast face, as if he was a loyal official who had no choice but to sacrifice his son to save the country. Peak. Chapter 41-48. Not long after, news spread from the palace that Daki had to compensate the prime minister's son to appease Princess Yuan's anger. It is said that Princess Yuan wanted the prime minister's son because what Prince Ding did made her bitterly disappointed. She even said that since Prince Ding gave her such a big gift, she would not stand on ceremony for the friendship between the two nations. The prime minister's son is so pitiful. His body is already weak and now he is implicated because Prince Ding was bewitched by the demon. The journey from Daki to Beiwang Nation is long. I wonder if the prime minister's son can withstand it. I heard that Princess Yuan does not need the prime minister's son. If it is not the prime minister's son, it is fine to compensate her with 180 aristocratic young masters. This news spread from nowhere. Not to mention the capital, it had already spread to other places. It would not be long before the entire Daki knew about it. If not for the Daki Emperor's announcement that day that Prince Ding and the demon would be thrown into jail, various places would have fallen into chaos. Daki was considered peaceful and it would not be easy to cause trouble. However, those people were also observing. If Daki and Beiwang Nation were to become enemies, it would not be peaceful anymore. Therefore, Daki's emperor had no choice but to smile and send the prime minister over. If he did not hand over the prime minister's son, Tang Guo would demand 180 aristocratic young masters. Everyone was afraid. After hearing that Ji Changqiu had agreed to this matter, all the aristocratic families sent over their best items. Even the emperor opened his own treasury and gave the prime minister's residence a death exemption gold medallion. Although the prime minister did not care about this item, the death exemption gold medallion was useless when the emperor wanted his minister to die. However, now that his son's future had been planned out, he was truly free of worries. don't think that this matter is over. It's not over yet. The emperor only stripped Prince Ding of his title and his permanent inheritance rights. It was not painful at all. As for that Su Ruoyu, he knew that the emperor coveted the item in Su Ruoyu's hands. As long as Su Ruoyu was in Helian Feng's hands, the other party would be able to cause trouble. Once his son left, Daqi would not be peaceful anymore. He was looking forward to who Daqi would land in the future. Anyway, he was not on anyone's side. He could be a royalist and secretly cause trouble without any worries. The Prime Minister was overjoyed at the thought that he wouldn't have to be so fearful in the future. In front of outsiders, the Prime Minister was still frowning and slovenly, as if he had aged decades in an instant. The Emperor knew that the Prime Minister was an old fox, but he was still a little worried about sending his son away. Although it's hard to guess what that old fox is thinking normally, he has indeed been wronged in this matter. The Emperor sighed. I'm afraid that he will resent third brother very much. I hope that third brother will learn his lesson this time and not provoke this old fellow. This time, he had really offended the other party. The Emperor decided to make it up to the Prime Minister. He really wasn't afraid that the other party's achievements would shock the Emperor or anything like that. Now that his only son had been sent away, there was nothing for him to fear. Moreover, all of the Prime Minister's hatred was directed at Helian Feng. As the Emperor, all he had to do was to put up a good front. Helian Feng was still in prison. Now that his title had been taken away, he knew that he had no chance of inheriting the throne. Vertex. Chapter 41-49. Although he was unwilling, he didn't do anything. If he showed any dissatisfaction, his father would suspect that he was ambitious. As long as Su Ruoyu was around, some things could be slowly planned. He had his power and Su Ruoyu's space, so there was no hurry. When he heard that Tang Guo wanted the emperor to compensate her husband, Helian Feng was furious. She divorced him first, and now she was making a cuckold out of him. No man could stand it. One day, Helian Feng, will flatten Beiwang country. Helian Feng stared at the cell door and swore in his heart. On the other side, Su Ruoyu's situation wasn't good either. Everyone said that she was a monster, so she was chained up all day long. The chains were 2 fingers wide, afraid that she would run away. If Helian Feng didn't arrange for someone to send her a message, she might not have been able to hold it in and escaped. Helian Feng told her to be patient for a while, and he would help her get back everything. He wouldn't let her suffer for nothing. Su Ruoyu felt that Helian Feng wanted to do something big, so she chose to stay. As the saying goes, one can only rise above others after suffering the most. One day, she would help Helian Feng become the emperor of Daqi, and they would flatten Beiwang country together. She would return the humiliation today tenfold. Tang Guo leisurely leaned against the cushions in the carriage with her beautiful husband compensated by the emperor of Daqi. She was facing Ji Changqiu. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Tang Guo asked. Ji Changqiu shook his head. No. He couldn't tell that Tang Guo was looking at him differently. He understood that he wasn't the only one who wanted to scheme against them. She was also scheming against him. In the end, of course, she won. Beiwang country's climate is actually very suitable for living. Daqi is slightly drier, especially during the summer, it's hot and unbearable. Beiwang country is different. It's like spring all year round, and there are many mountains and rivers. It's not dry at all, and it's full of birds and flowers all year round. Ji Changqiu smiled. I've read about Beiwang country in a journal. I've always envied that place. I didn't expect to have the chance to live there. Although you have married into my family, if you miss home in the future, I can accompany you back home. System, bastard host. Ji Changqiu didn't know what to say. Earlier, he was still thinking that the only person he was worried about was his father, but Tang Guo had already thought of his worries. He suddenly felt that God was actually very fair. He was given a body that was not very good, but he met the best person. Princess, I would like to ask you a question. Tang Guo gently raised his eyes. You're already my son-in-law. If you want to ask anything, just ask. Princess, when did you start having feelings for me? Ji Changqiu asked seriously, his eyes never leaving Tang Guo's face. I also want to ask Prince Consort a question. When did you start to have feelings for me? Tang Guo did not answer first, but asked instead. Ji Changqiu was a little confused. I don't know either. One day, I suddenly understood that I have feelings for you. At that time, I was a little depressed and thought that it was impossible between us. Princess, it's your turn to speak. Tang Guo sat up and said seriously, if I say it, would you believe it at first sight? Do you know that there's a phrase called a sexual revolt? Tang Guo asked 2 questions in a row, and Ji Changqiu didn't know how to answer. The peak. Chapter 4150. He had long heard that Princess Yuan was a straightforward person, but he didn't expect her to be so direct. Ji Changqiu suddenly thought of something and asked, Princess, I heard that your condition is that you either want me or I'll compensate you with 180 beautiful men. Does that mean that 180 beautiful men is worth one of me? He didn't feel good about it. You've just become the prince consort and you're already jealous. Tang Guo was amused. If I didn't say that, people would think that it was because of you. Now that I said it, everyone would think that I was angry at Helian Feng's actions and made such a decision in a fit of anger. Then, the spearhead of this matter will be pointed at Helian Feng. Even if she left, she still had to teach Helian Feng a lesson, right? Ji Changqiu thought that even a princess of Beiwang country was so powerful. If they were to fight seriously, Daki was indeed no match for her. That means that the one in your heart is still me. What else do you think? Steam rose from the tea on the table. Ji Changqiu's eyes carried a smile and the corners of his lips rose uncontrollably. He hurriedly poured a cup of tea for Tang Guo. That's good. This was the ending he hoped for. In the future, he would only have her and she would only have him. A couple for life. This was the first time Ji Changqiu heard of it, not from Su Ruoyu, but from his parents. When he was young, his mother died of illness. Before she died, he remembered that his mother said to his father, "Why don't we break the promise of a couple for life? I won't be able to accompany you for that long." His father laughed and cried at the same time. Since we've already made a promise, there's no reason to go back on it. Madam, you're the one who made me promise. Even if you die, you can't go back on your promise. Madam, do you know what a couple for life is? It means that the two of us can only have each other for life and there can't be a third person. If you feel that you owe me in this life, then make it up to me in the next life. If you can't make it up in this life, then make it up to me in the next life. I hope that in the next life, I owe you 10 years. Then, we can meet again in the next life. In the next life, you owe me another 10 years. Then, in the next life. Prince Consort, what are you thinking? Ji Changqiu snapped out of his daze and took out a transparent crystal. Tang Guo recognized it at a glance. Wasn't this a crystal? Ji Changqiu grabbed Tang Guo's hand and placed the crystal in her palm. This is something my mother left behind. She said that if I was satisfied with my future fiancée and was willing to be with her for the rest of my life, I would give this to her. If the two of them didn't hit it off, they should break off the engagement as soon as possible so as not to delay each other. When I meet someone I like and am willing to spend the rest of my life with her, I will give this crystal to her. Therefore, if Su Ruoyu hadn't caused so much trouble when she came back, he would probably use his body's defect to ask the Su family to annul the engagement. No matter what, he would make her fall into a bad situation of having her engagement broken off. Dear host, after scanning the crystal, the words, "A pair for life," were engraved on it by a modern machine. Therefore, your adorable mother is most likely a modern person. She might be the previous female lead of this world. Tangua's imagination ran wild. It wasn't like she hadn't met a transmigrator before, so she wasn't surprised at all. She clenched the crystal tightly and held Ji Changqiu's hand. The words on it are quite interesting. Prince Consort, do you want to only have the two of us for the rest of our lives? The Peak. Chapter 41-51. Of course. Tangua smiled and interlocked her fingers with Ji Changqiu's. When they returned to Beiwang country, they were already holding each other's hands as they got off the carriage. Even though they were tired from the long journey, they were still smiling and there was no fatigue in their eyes. When Tangua returned to Beiwang country this time, she was welcomed by everyone in Beiwang country. There was another piece of good news. Because of Tangua's revelation, Daki had produced new crops. One of Beiwang country's conditions was to bring back 2 carts of crops. In addition, Su Ruoyu's formulas were also in their hands. There were also some other benefits, but they did not ask for Daki's land. Daki's emperor could only reluctantly agree. Princess Yueyin had returned to Beiwang country and brought back countless good things. How could she not be welcomed? Tangua didn't even summon the paper puppets back. When she left, she assigned them a task. They only needed to balance out the situation between the princes. If Helian Feng used his ultimate move, they were to help stop him and prevent him from succeeding. In addition, she assigned 2 bodyguards to protect the Prime Minister and Prince Zhong's family. Not long after returning to Beiwang country, Tangua and Ji Changqiu were officially married. Ji Changqiu looked weak, but he was actually a very talented person. However, this talented prince consort did not do much. He opened a tea house in the capital city and hired 2 storytellers to tell the stories he wrote every day. Later on, everyone realized that Princess Yueyin liked to listen to storytelling. For some reason, the Prime Minister's son was given to Princess Yueyin by Daki's emperor, but they felt that he was very nice. Gradually, they saw how loving the couple was and their hostility towards Ji Changqiu lessened. No matter where Tangua went, she would bring Ji Changqiu along. The new crops they brought back were very good. The emperor of Beiwang country was thinking that if Daki offended him again, he would have a chance to send Hao Qi over to take advantage of him. Some people in Daki were not good, but they had good things. Over at Daki's side, although the Prime Minister was happy to see his son off, he was still very reluctant. His son had always been by his side. How could he not be sad when he suddenly left? He could tell that Princess Yueyin was sincere towards his son, so he was relieved. The unhappy Prime Minister directed all his anger at Helian Feng. After Helian Feng was released, he ordered all of his spies to keep an eye on Helian Feng and cause trouble for him. Because Su Ruoyu's identity was exposed, the emperor had to put her to death again on the surface. After this time, Su Ruoyu really did not dare to show her original face. She simply brought a human mask. She disguised herself as a man and stayed by Helian Feng's side, helping Helian Feng train his subordinates. Helian Feng felt that the emperor really didn't want to pass the throne to him. Therefore, he planned to cultivate his own forces first. In the future, if the situation wasn't right, he would directly force the emperor to abdicate. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Helian Feng had fought with a few of his brothers, but he had failed time and time again. In addition, there was also a prime minister who often found trouble with him, so his heart was filled with resentment. He finally decided to get rid of the prime minister. There's news from Daki. Chengqiu, take a look. Tang Guo handed the letter to Ji Chengqiu. It's about father. Ji Chengqiu's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly took the letter and read it. When he saw the contents, he immediately stood up in worry. When he reached the end, he let out a long sigh. Guo, why are your letters always faster than mine? Tang Guo thought of the pigeons that the prime minister raised. They were finally not fat anymore. She smiled and said, maybe it's because the pigeons are different. The peak. Chapter 4152. I didn't expect Helian Feng to frame my father for betraying the country. He is really something. Of course, this plan failed. With the help of Tang Guo and Papercut, it was impossible to succeed. Not only did it fail, but Helian Feng was also exposed. This made everyone's jaws drop. Framing a prime minister for betraying the country was no longer a simple matter. This time, Helian Feng was stripped of all his rights by the emperor and was confined to his residence. However, according to the news, Helian Feng had escaped. Daki's emperor ordered that Helian Feng was wanted throughout the country, dead or alive. Not only did Helian Feng escape, but he also escaped with Su Ruoyu. Chengqiu, go back and see your father. It's been a few years. It's time to go back and see him. He must miss you. She heard that Daki had produced a few new crops. This time, she was going to be the representative of the emissary group to ask if the emperor was well. Dear host, Helian Feng is currently in a village. This village is filled with his people. He is recruiting soldiers and buying horses. All the resources come from Su Ruoyu's space. Just now, I heard Su Ruoyu say that there isn't much spirit spring left in the space. Did she give up on giving Helian Feng more spirit spring? No, she wants the rebellion to succeed more than Helian Feng. After all, she hasn't had a good day in the past few years. Okay, when the spirit spring is used up, we will tell her the truth about Helian Feng. Tang Guo and Ji Chengqiu returned to Daki. Almost all of Daki's citizens knew that Princess Yuan was representing the Beiwang Kingdom. She hadn't arrived yet, but the entire Daki knew. When Daki's emperor found out, he didn't feel good. He wasn't afraid of Tang Guo and Ji Chengqiu, but he was afraid of some restless people who wanted to use this opportunity to make a fuss. Especially his unfilial son and Su Ruoyu, that evildoer. He didn't know what kind of trouble they would cause if they knew about this. Host, you are too evil. You purposely let Su Ruoyu know about you. This time, she will definitely bring people to kill you. What if she doesn't come? Even if she doesn't come, Helian Feng will come. Killing you can start a war between the two countries. This is what he wants. Daki's citizens are so pitiful. Helian Feng wants to put them in danger for his own selfish reasons. Once a protector, now a scourge. Dear host, we've all lived for thousands of years. I know very well what you're thinking. Stop pretending. Isn't this part of your plan? Ji Chengqiu seemed to have understood something, but he didn't say anything. He was well aware of Tang Guo's attitude. She would not really start a war between the two countries. As long as there was no war, anything was fine. Half a month later, Tanggua and the others had already entered the territory of Dichi. They really did encounter assassinations. Unfortunately, those assassins did not return. They were all captured alive. When the officials of Daki met them at the city gate, they were stunned to find some tied-up men in black following behind them. "Greetings, Princess Yuan, Prince Consort." Daki's official felt that something was amiss, but he still braced himself to greet them. "I won't be going to rest first. I want to see the Emperor of Dichi first. On the way, I've captured 30 villains who wanted to start a war between the two countries. As such, I intend to gift them to the Emperor of Dichi." Su Ruoyu did not come personally, but those who came were all elites under their command. On the way, Tanggua had already tricked them into revealing their identities. When the Emperor received this unusual gift, his expression was as ugly as it could get. When Tanggua mentioned that she was curious about Daki's new crops in the past 2 years, he could not hold back his expression. He gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Unfilial son. After getting the compensation, Tanggua went to the Prime Minister's residence with Ji Changqiu. This time, she planned to stay here for 3 months. The Prime Minister was naturally happy. If not for his status, he would have moved to Beiwang country. Especially when he saw that his precious son was in good health, the Prime Minister felt even more energized. He felt that he had made the right move. How much spring water do we have left? I'm afraid these people are not enough." After their previous failure, Helian Feng and Su Ruoyu did not plan to provoke Tanggua again. They wanted to take down Daki first. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.